There's something about hotels that seems to attract the spirits of the dead like no other type of building, and today we're counting down some of the most reportedly haunted hotels. Have you ever stayed in any of the places on this list, or any haunted hotel for that matter? I'm your host James, and these are the top 10 haunted hotels where guests never checked out. We're starting off the list with Hotel Monte Vista in Flagstaff, Arizona. There is some disturbing stuff going on at this place, at least that's what I've read. This place is teeming with former guests who checked into the hotel and never left, having met gruesome ends. Their spirits are now lingering within the establishment. One ghost, or in this case a pair of ghosts, are two women who were thrown from the third floor back in the day and now spend their time as ghosts attempting to strangle male guests in their sleep. One long-term guest in the early 80s had a strange hobby of hanging meat from the chandelier in his room. One day he was found dead in his room. That room is 220, and guests and staff report strange activity going on in the room. Some staff just veer clear of it completely. The TV is known to turn on its own. This even continued after the TV was replaced, and some report the feeling of being touched by a cold, unseen hand. Number 9, the Hotel del Salto. This Colombian hotel was first erected in 1923 and it has quite the reputation. That's why it has its dark nickname, which I can't really say the name of here, but suffice to say, a good number of people have died here. This place is absolutely gorgeous, overlooking the Tequendama waterfalls, but legend has it that in order to prevent being captured by Spanish conquistadors, the natives of the area would jump from these very cliffs. During the hotel's operation, a good number of people took their lives there or would fall by mistake, and this picturesque building became steeped in sadness and despair. The building still stands today, now having been transformed into a museum, but some still say not to go near the property at night, as countless lost souls still roam the grounds. At number 8, we have the Hotel del Coronado. This beautiful San Diego hotel is known to have had some pretty famous guests like President Ronald Reagan and Katharine Hepburn, just to name a couple. But there's also one ghost who checked in and has never left. Her name is Kate Morgan, and she's been haunting the hotel since her death in 1892. Kate Morgan had checked into the hotel and spent a few days there before taking her own life. She'd had stomach cancer and was waiting for her brother, who was a doctor, to arrive and assist her with her illness, but he didn't show up, and she hadn't received any letters. Her spirit is said to roam the property to this day, still waiting for her brother to finally arrive, especially on the third floor. Her room is frequently requested by paranormal enthusiasts. There's another ghost supposedly said to haunt the hotel though, an actress by the name of Isadore Rush, who drowned by the beach in 1904. Staff have reported seeing the lights turn on and off in her room that she'd been staying in, even when the room is empty. Course. Next, we have the Mermaid Inn in East Sussex. This historical building was built at some time in the 12th or 13th centuries. With a building that old, it's no surprise people say it's haunted. Gotta say, it'd be pretty incredible to stay in a place like this. This place has quite the history. It was originally frequented mostly by medieval sailors. From 1420 to 1770, it was a bar and an inn which was frequently visited by the Hawkhurst Gang, a group of privateers who terrorized the area. The Mermaid Inn saw a number of deaths at the hands of these criminals over the years, some of which had been attempting to snitch on them. One of the leaders, Thomas Kingsmill, who was executed in 1749 for his crimes, is said to haunt the inn till this very day. The inn was eventually reopened in 1993, and guests have reported seeing a ghostly figure of a woman in white standing at the front of their bed when they wake up. There's also the spirit of a maid who died at the hands of a smuggler in room 5, which has been reportedly haunted well before the modern era. And of course, you have Thomas Kingsmill himself, who supposedly haunts a rocking chair in room 17. At number 6, we have the Mizpah Hotel in Nevada. This hotel opened in 1904 and was one of the first luxury hotels built in the state. It's a really nice looking hotel with Victorian era decor. I imagine it looks almost exactly as it did in the 1900s. As luxurious as this place is though, there's a dark piece of history that still lingers within the walls of the building to this day, and that is the death of a guest whose name has been lost to time but is known simply as the Red Lady. The Red Lady was believed to have lived at the hotel, providing a specific service for male clientele, the oldest trade in the world. The story goes that one of her clients saw her with another man and in a fit of jealous rage took her life. In some versions of the tale, she was strangled, in others she fell to her death from the 5th floor. But no matter what version you hear, it all ends the same way, with her spirit lingering within the hotel. Men will sometimes hear her disembodied voice whispering sweet things in their ears. Some have reported finding a pearl from her broken necklace under their pillows. You know what, that doesn't sound bad actually. I'll take a pearl and a seductive whisper, why not? And at number 5, we have the Huelma building in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Today, the Huelma building stands, but it's the site of a very tragic incident which took place in 1974. One of the deadliest high-rise fires in history. It was a morning like any other until an air conditioner on the 12th floor short-circuited, engulfing the entire floor in flames, which quickly spread to the rest of the building. Within 20 minutes, the entire building was on fire. Firemen rushed to the scene, but tragically, their ladders could only reach the 15th floor, so everyone above all burnt to death in the flames. And when the dust settled, it was determined that an estimated 179 people lost their lives. While making their way through the torched building, authorities found 13 bodies trapped in the elevator. They had been burnt so badly that they were completely unrecognizable and were never identified. Their bodies were buried in the Sao Pedro cemetery, and some tell stories of hearing moans and cries of agony coming from their unmarked graves. Number 4, Paso Alberti stations in Buenos Aires. The A line in Buenos Aires is the oldest subway in Latin America, completed in 1913. Building the line was a massive undertaking that tragically claimed the lives of many workers there, including Salvador Vaca and Antonio Salas, were Italian immigrants whose deaths were initially hidden as accidents, but later revealed to be due to pure negligence. Some think that their spirits, along with others who met their ends during the construction, wander through the tracks at night. Some are reported hearing footsteps and catching glimpses of these ghoulish faces passing by the windows as the train speeds down the tunnels. People claim to see white translucent figures in the dark tunnels of these abandoned tracks, and some workers have even witnessed security cameras mysteriously turning off at night only to capture this eerie white figure when turned back on. Phantom Bride in her white gown is said to kind of roam the tunnels, and it leads to speculation that maybe she was abandoned at the altar or met a tragic fate on her wedding day, perhaps throwing herself onto the tracks. Who knows? Number 3, we have the Castillo San Cristobal in San Juan, Puerto Rico. This one has something of a tragic love story behind it. That's exactly what it is. This military base was built by the Spanish during the Inquisition. The executioner at the base had a daughter, Maria Dolores, who ended up falling in love with a thief named Bentoncourt. Bentoncourt was eventually arrested for his crimes and sentenced to death, and who executed the man? Maria's very own father, of course. And Maria was unaware of her lover's death until she discovered his remains in the gallows one day. She was so heartbroken and devastated that she ended up taking her own life right there and then. It's said that the lover's spirits still haunt this former military base till this very day. And coming in at our number 2 spot, I'm sure you've all heard of this one, the Island of Dolls in Mexico City. And yes, Mexico, not technically South America, right? But it's close. Plus, is there anything more unsettling to look at than a doll? Maybe multiple dolls. Now hang them all from trees in a forest. No surprise why this is one of the most famous creepy locations on the planet. The Island of Dolls in Mexico City's Xochimilco canals, that's a pretty eerie sight. It's covered with dolls hanging from trees and scattered about. It's their dead eyes and messed up faces. Story goes that a man named Don Julian Santana Barrera started hanging the dolls in order to appease the spirit of a drowned girl they found in the canal. Lots of people think that the island is now haunted. They say the dolls move their heads, whisper, and make spooky sounds. mounds. The Island of Dolls has become quite a tourist attraction. Some say the place feels like you're being watched by these ghostly forces. And finally, we have the Casa Matusita. Lima's Casa Matusita is a haunted residence that instills fear in people for a pretty good reason. It's got some dark history that dates back to Peru's colonial period, when a woman of Persian descent became its first notable resident. Accused of witchcraft during the Spanish Inquisition, she was sentenced to death and cursed the land before burning at the stake. And so things only got worse when a wealthy and cruel landlord built a large home on this cursed plot of land. He mistreated his staff, and he unknowingly pushed them to seek revenge during a high-profile dinner party. The staff spiked guests' drinks with hallucinogenic, but their prank kind of backfired tragically when the guests started brutally massacring each other. Decades later, the Matusita family moved in, setting up a business on the first floor, and a violent incident occurred when Mr. Matusita discovered his wife in bed with another dude, causing the man to snap, take the life of his wife, her lover, and finally himself.
Number 10 is Monte Cristo Homestead. Monte Cristo Homestead is a historic homestead that was constructed by local pioneer Christopher William Crawley in 1885. It's a double-story late Victorian style manor standing on a hill overlooking the town. While it belonged to the Crawleys, it was riddled with death as a stable boy burnt to death, a girl was thrown down the stairs, a maid lobbed off a balcony, and a caretaker was shot dead, amongst others, so of course this place is haunted. Current owner Olive Ryan says, "I've had a hand on my shoulder, I've had my name called when I've been here by myself, I've heard footsteps on the balcony and gone out and there's no one there." And now all this started just 2 days after moving in, when she saw from a distance beaming bright lights coming from the home, which at the time was only lit by one kerosene lamp. The lights were gone by the time the car made it down the long driveway, she said. Other reported experiences include a medium who was struck in the head, a young girl's separate asthma attack-like episode despite no medical history, several strange occurrences involving animals, and multiple reports of presences, footsteps, and voices from the boarders, visitors, and family members. Number 9. Devil's Pool. According to Aboriginal folklore, a young runaway bride who fell to her death at Devil's Pool is believed to be the reason why so many young men's lives, especially male tourists, have been taken at the site. The legend begins with a young woman named Ulana who married an elder from her own tribe. Yet shortly after they married, she fell in love with another man, Daiga, from a touring tribe. Now it's said that the two lovers, Ulana and Daiga, ran away from their tribes and fled to what is now known as Devil's Pool, where they were captured by the elders. Yet Ulana broke free and leapt into the creek waters, calling for Daiga to follow. She hit the water, crying out for her love Daiga, which shook the water into action. The land vibrated around her, sending boulders flying into the creek and causing the water to plunge forward at alarming rates. Now it's said if you listen closely, it's thought you can still hear Ulana's cries for her lost love, according to the indigenous legend. Her curse on the spookily named Devil's Pool, also known as Babinda boulders in tropical North Queensland, has lingered ever since. Ulana is said to have lured 17 men to a watery grave in the past half-century, remembered with the eerie saying, "He came for a visit and stayed forever." Now, if I were a man, I would not risk going here. Number 8. Quarantine Station. Set up as a vital safeguard in 1833 to prevent immigrants arriving in Australia from spreading diseases to the main settlement in the city, many migrants spent their final days at the compound before succumbing to deadly viruses. Officially, close to 600 people died at the station out of the 26,000 who stayed there between the quarantine site being founded in the 1830s and its closure in the 1980s. Now the site now operates as a luxury hotel resort, but it is extremely haunted. Hundreds of spirit encounters have occurred over the years, varying from apparitions, people suddenly feeling nauseated and unwell, to objects being moved without any explanation. Several nurses, as well as a spirit known as matron, are said to patrol the hospital ward, while a mortician in a top hat, nicknamed by staff as Mr. Slimy, has been spotted walking around the grounds. A fisherman from China called Mr. Chen often roams around the third-class living quarters, where passengers who were not of a white descent had to live while at the compound. Now around 20 children are said to haunt the site, but a little boy called Isaac Lowe's is one of the more frequent spirits to be seen. Number 7. Old Helensburgh Railway Tunnel. Sitting just south of Sydney is Old Helensburgh Railway Tunnel, said to be the home of a ghost of a miner, Robert Hales, who died in 1895. He'd been walking home along the short 80-meter long tunnel after a long day at work. A steam train raced along the tracks from behind and hit the hapless miner. The force of the impact was so great that his body was ripped in two, with each half scattered meters apart. Now, as far as the legend goes, the ghost of Mr. Hales still haunts the tunnel as a mischievous spirit, chases after trains, and even runs through tourists. A lot of people say they had experienced weird stuff in there, seeing things, sensations, someone watching them, a ghost tour guide, Craig Bloxham said. Number 6. Picton. Being the most haunted town in Australia, Picton is also known for its countryside views and paranormal gardens. The town is located about 80 kilometers southwest of Sydney and has had a historical significance due to its buildings and railway tunnels. The Mushroom Tunnel, also known as former Red Bank Range Railway, is a haunted tunnel as the stories say that there was a terrible railway accident involving a woman named Emily Bollard. The reports suggest people often witness Emily and 2 other women ghosts and also hear some scary voices, crying, and shrieks. Many people have also reported a sudden drop of temperature, eerie shadows, a gust of winds, orbs, body chills, and many weird happenings inside the tunnel. Number 5. Fairmont Banff Springs Hotel, Canada. Ever since it was completed in 1888, this hotel has been associated with paranormal activity. One of the most famous legends is of the ghost bride who on her wedding day, decked out in her wedding gown, descended one of the Hull's marble staircases. Something startled her, causing her to slip and fall, and she died on those steps. Since then, the hotel staff and guests alike have reported seeing a veiled figure moving up and down the stairs, or seeing a figure in a wedding dress dancing in the ballroom upstairs, pining for the first dance with her husband that she never had. Stories of Sam McCulley, a genial old Scotsman who was a head bellman during the 60s and 70s, have been circulating around the hotel since his passing in 1975. Supposedly, Sam is a helpful sort of spirit, and most stories involve him mention some service he's provided to staff or guests. There are also haunted rooms, as guests have reported having pillows yanked from under their heads while they slept, or even being pushed off the bed by some unseen entity. In another room, an entire family had their life ended there, and ever since, guests in that room have reported being awakened by screaming, and when they turned on the lights, they would see bloody handprints on the mirror. Number 4. Dow Hill, India. Tourists who have visited the hill station of Darjeeling might not know about this. Dow Hill is a lesser-known haunted place in India and has ghost fables connected to it. A small stretch of the road between Dow Hill and the forest office is called Death Road, which obviously means it's haunted. A young headless boy has been spotted by woodcutters who see him walk down the road and disappear into the woods. Not only this, but people also feel like they're being followed and watched by a woman with gray clothes. Locals have also spotted a red eye staring at them too. Some people have even gone mad, and some even ended their own lives after going into this forest. Now, forests in general are just creepy, and with all this going on, I would be staying away. And to make matters worse, there is a haunted boys' school near the woods, which is haunted as well. Locals feel a similar vibe to the forest near this school, and loud whispering and footsteps have been heard between December to March as it is closed during this time. Number 3. Hellfire Club, Ireland. The Hellfire in Dublin was built as a hunting lodge where Dublin elites used to gather in the 1700s. The ruins of the club are located on top of the Montpelier Hill overlooking the adjacent Massey Woods. Now, the secrecy surrounding the club led to speculation that its members were Satanists and devil worshippers. The president was named the King of Hell and dressed like Satan with horns, wings, and hooves. The members were also said to set a place at each meeting for the devil and hope that he'd attend. Now, there have been numerous stories about black masses, animals, and even human sacrifice rituals happening in the Hellfire Club, but that's not all. The best known Hellfire Club story is one in which the devil himself appears. According to a legend, a stranger joined the club members at a game of cards. Then, when one of the players dropped a card on the floor, he bent down to retrieve it and saw that the stranger had cloven hooves instead of feet. Another common visitor is the ghost of a young lady who is believed to have been burned inside a barrel and rolled down the hill. Number 2. Akasha's Fortress, Norway. This medieval castle served as a defensive stronghold for the city of Oslo, and it is rumored to be the most haunted place in Norway. For many years, parts of the castle served as a prison for some of Norway's most notorious criminals. The sentence often involved grueling physical labor, and the prison was infamous for using irons, chains, and prisoner isolation as disciplinary techniques. It closed as a prison in 1950, but over the years there have been numerous reports of whispers and scratching along the fortress halls, and many guards have reported weird experiences, like the sensation of being pushed while being alone on duty. Many visitors and employees claim to have experienced something they cannot declare. Most of the paranormal occurrences are the common phenomena. People hear footsteps, disembodied voices, and smell strange smells, but there are some claims that have been around for centuries. The most popular sightings include a demon dog named Malkazian, who is said to guard the gates of the castle. But if you are bitten by this dog, you are bound to die within 3 months, and of course in a very unhappy and painful way. And for decades, people claim to have seen a woman appear from the darkness wearing a long dark cloak that has no face. Creepy. And coming in at number 1 is the Tower of London, England. With a history of torment and execution going back over 900 years, the Tower of London is regarded by many as one of the most haunted places in the UK. It was originally built in 1008 by William the Conqueror and has served as a significant role in the history of England ever since. There have been many reports of the paranormal at the Tower of London over the years. The most famous of all ghosts that live within its walls is Anne Boleyn Ghost, the wife of King Henry VIII. She was beheaded in 1536, and her headless body has been seen walking around the tower's corridors and often near the spot of her demise. Other full body apparitions have also been seen, including Lady Jane Grey, spotted by a guardsman in 1957. Now, one of the most notable ghosts is that of what is believed to be 2 young princes. They have been witnessed throughout the rooms of the castle, as they're often seen in nightgowns, holding hands with a look of terror on their faces. It is believed that these are 2 former princes who were sent to the tower after they were deemed illegitimate by Parliament. They vanished one day, and it was assumed that their lives were ended by the order of their uncle, the Duke of Gloucester. To corroborate this, 2 small skeletons were exhumed beneath the staircase in the White Tower.
Gibraltar Point Lighthouse is the oldest existing lighthouse on the Great Lakes. It's also said to be one of the most haunted buildings in Toronto. It was built in 1808 on the Toronto Islands and is said to be haunted till this day by its first keeper, John Paul Rademüller, who was killed in 1815. Now, there are a few different versions of this story about how he died, but the most common is that he was killed by 2 soldiers from Fort York. You see, Rademüller was a bootlegger of beer, and after learning of how watered down his booze was, a scuffle broke out, with Rademüller being beaten to death by the soldiers. His ghost is said to haunt the lighthouse to this day. I actually went to elementary school on the island and have seen the place up close a number of times. I even had a teacher who'd been inside it alone one day, and this guy was not a big believer in paranormal type stuff. He was this very no-nonsense, like, British man, but he told this story where as he was climbing the lighthouse steps, he started to hear labored breaths coming from below. He figured a guard had come in or something like that, and he started climbing back down the steps to check it out, see what was up, but nobody there. He was completely alone the whole time.
Next on our list today we have St. Mary's Lighthouse, located on St. Mary's Island in Whitley Bay, England. Prior to the construction of the lighthouse, a medieval chapel had been built on the island, and next to the chapel was a burial ground for the island's monks. In 1898, when the lighthouse was built, the remains of the chapel vanished, and as cottages were built up around the island to accommodate the various lighthouse keepers, the graves of the monks actually became disturbed as construction workers broke ground in the areas surrounding the lighthouse. While this is already grounds for, well, haunted grounds, prior to the construction of the lighthouse, a few other less peaceful deaths occurred on the island. In 1722, Anthony Mitchell, a local customs officer, was brutalized and killed by smugglers who dumped his body on the island. And in 1739, a glassmaker, Michael Curry, was sentenced to death at the gallows on the island after killing a man by the name of Old Hartley. Needless to say, if you are looking to spend some time in a haunted lighthouse, Mary's Island is the place to go. You can even visit the lighthouse, but be warned, as the tours on the island reserved for the living are said to often be accompanied by the dead.
The Seguin Island Lighthouse in Maine was built in 1857. It's said to be haunted by the spirit of a husband and wife. Now, the story goes that one of the early keepers lived alone at the lighthouse with his wife. They were both isolated and lonely. For long periods, they barely interacted with the outside world. The wife spent a lot of time playing piano to pass the hours, and as the months wore on, the husband began losing his mind, and eventually he just snapped, bludgeoning his wife with an axe before taking his own life. And some nights, it's said you can hear faint piano melodies coming from the lighthouse, where there's no longer a piano. One of the creepiest stories happened in 1985. The lighthouse had been decommissioned, and a warrant officer was tasked with spending the night in the lighthouse to make sure that everything of value was going to be packed to be loaded onto a boat the next day. That night, the officer woke up to his bed shaking and an eerie voice screaming at him to leave. Now, the officer figured he'd maybe just woken up from a bad nightmare and ended up staying till morning. The boat ended up being loaded with all the stuff from the lighthouse and it set sail, but the boat never made it to its destination. An accident caused it to sink.
Next on our list today, we have the Kinnaird Head Castle Lighthouse located in Fraserburgh, Scotland. The story goes that the owner of the castle, Alexander Fraser, Laird of Philorth, I think that's how you pronounce that. Anyways, he had a daughter, Isabel, who fell in love with a servant, Piper. Much like Romeo and Juliet, Fraser forbade the affair. But as we know, young women rarely listen to their father's opinions on suitors, and so they did whatever they could to be together. But one day, Fraser had enough of the pair sneaking around behind his back, and so he tied the Piper to Seal's Hole, a cavern located underneath the wine tower located next to the castle lighthouse. He then locked his daughter in the wine tower's top floor. That night, a high tide hit the shores surrounding the tower and the Piper drowned. When Isabel found out about her lover's death, she flung herself out of the window. Her ghost can now be seen wandering around the grounds surrounding the lighthouse, usually during high tide and bad weather. And if you listen hard enough, it is said that you can also hear the sounds of pipes being played by the poor Piper.
Boone Island Lighthouse is said to be haunted by a ghost in a flowing white gown, the spirit of Kathleen Bright. In the 1800s, Kathleen married the lighthouse keeper and moved to Boone Island full of hope. One version of the story tells of her husband falling ill during a storm and passing away, leaving Kathleen to tend to the lighthouse alone, and for days she climbed the stairs tirelessly, not having eaten or slept until the light finally went out. Locals rushed to the island to check on things and found Kathleen wandering the lighthouse aimlessly, completely grief-stricken, and died not long after. Another version of the tale goes that the husband drowned, and Kathleen ended up dragging his body all the way back to the lighthouse and then tended to the light for days without rest until locals found her sitting beside her husband's lifeless body. Once again, she died soon after being found. And ever since her death, fishermen have reported spotting the ghostly figure of Kathleen wandering the island, along with eerie wails echoing from the lighthouse. Two later lighthouse keepers even reported the light mysteriously turning on when they were both outside. They were the only ones on the island. At least the only living on the island.
Next up, we have the Pensacola Lighthouse, one of the most haunted lighthouses in the world, according to the Travel Channel. Which makes sense considering the fact that it has been haunted for the past 160 years. The lighthouse was built in 1824. After it was built, the Clifford family moved in, and a few years later, their adult daughter passed away during a delivery in room 1911, which has now come to be known as the Bloody Room. In the 1840s, Michaela Penelber moved in with her husband, but he died shortly after, and so she hired two men to help around the property until her death. During the Civil War, opposing sides fought over the property, damaging it severely. During its reconstruction, which took a total of 20 23 years, lightning struck the tower twice in the same year, and an earthquake struck the grounds as well, just to add insult to injury. Also during the reconstruction period, a man named Samuel Lawrence died while working as a lighthouse keeper. He is now often seen peering out the windows. The basement is also said to be haunted by 2 former workers who died on the property. In total, the property is said to be haunted by 6 spirits, some kind, some not, and some a bit handsy.
The Souter Lighthouse in England has been standing tall since 1871. It's gained quite the reputation over the years, being known as one of the most haunted lighthouses in the UK. Legend goes that Isabella Darling, niece of the renowned heroine Grace Darling, is said to wander the lighthouse to this day. Staff have reported your standard ghostly activity, random drops in temperature, phantom footsteps, but some have even claimed to have seen things like spoons floating in the air, and visitors will sometimes say they hear their own names being called before witnessing the apparition of a young girl believed to be Isabella, along with the sound of sobbing. And unseen hands will often tug at people's clothing or hair. Another tale tells of a lighthouse waitress encountering a ghostly figure in a keeper's uniform that then vanished into thin air, leaving behind this scent of tobacco.
Next up, we've got the New London Ledge Lighthouse, located in Newport, Rhode Island. This is definitely one of my personal favorite lighthouses just because it's completely surrounded by water. That being said, depending on who you are, there's a good chance this is the scariest lighthouse to you because of the fact that it's completely surrounded by water, meaning no chance of escape from the ghosts and ghouls that inhabit the property. The lighthouse was built in 1909. Sometime between then and the 80s, a man named Ernie became employed as a lighthouse keeper. After Ernie's death, his job was given to the coast's guardsmen, who often complained about experiencing strange occurrences during their time in the lighthouse. Weird noises, slamming doors, faulty electronics, and having their blankets pulled off of their beds in the middle of the night was not uncommon.
Cedar Head Lighthouse in Oregon is said to be full of paranormal activity. One story is about the ghost of a woman known as the Gray Lady, the restless spirit of a mother whose infant daughter tragically fell to her death from the cliff below the lighthouse. It's said the Gray Lady haunts the attic of this place now. Workers have said they've seen a woman in a long gray skirt floating around up there. One worker was tasked with replacing a broken window in the attic and was working away when suddenly, out of the corner of his eye, he saw her floating by. He fled the attic, and when he came back the next day, he found that the broken glass from the window he was fixing was neatly swept and piled by the window. At least it's a cleanly ghost. Visitors will also say, though, they see flickering lights, doors mysteriously locking by themselves, and items disappearing from one room and then showing up in a completely different one.
And finally, we have the South Stack or Anglesey Lighthouse, located just northwest of Holyhead on Holly Island in Wales. For centuries, the island has been the center of tales about dragons, fairies, and other mythical and mystical creatures. The lighthouse itself was built in 1809 to warn ships of poor weather and rough waters, but in 1853, despite those warnings, a dozen ships still went down along the shores of the Anglesey coast and the shores of the island after a massive storm rolled in. The original lighthouse keeper, Jack Jones, is also said to have died in the same storm after being hit by a falling rock during the rough weather. Today, Jack's ghost is said to haunt the castle, pounding on the windows and doors, perhaps trying to get the attention of boats passing by so that they may not meet the same fate as those in the dozen sunken ships.
La Noria in Chile. La Noria was a town located in the barren desert of Atacama. That's right, we have a ghost town on here, folks. A destination for ghost hunters and paranormal enthusiasts from across the world. Maybe some of you are one of them. It used to be a mining town in the 1800s, but by the early 1900s, most of the residents had packed up and left, leaving their now crumbling homes and buildings behind. Now, the people who lived there led tough lives. They worked constantly, the climate was harsh, many of them died suddenly, and life expectancy was not high. This is perhaps why the cemetery is said to be the most haunted part of the abandoned town. I guess cemeteries are pretty much the most haunted places anywhere you go, though, to be fair. Visiting there now, you'll see many coffins just out in the open, with skeletons just sitting there for you to see, bones scatter the area, and this is because there was a lot of looting in the area after the town was abandoned, and some say that at night, the souls of the deceased angered by the tampering of their graves, rise from their graves. Yeah, I gotta go there. Just the 112th place I have on my list since I started making these videos. Next up, we have the Vampire of Pisco. Now, looking at images of this Peruvian town, I just gotta start by saying, looks lovely. I would definitely visit, but just be warned, you could run into the ghost of a vampire lady if you're not careful. So, our story actually begins in England in 1913, where a woman named Sarah Ellen Roberts had been executed for being a witch. Some say she had even been bitten by Dracula himself and was one of his wives, a vampire witch. That's one dangerous woman. Right before her death, she warned that she would return from her grave in 80 years to exact vengeance. The Church of England believed her corpse to be too cursed to bury on holy ground, so her actual husband, not Dracula, sadly, a man by the name of John Roberts, probably the most average, uninteresting, basic name possible, decided to take her body elsewhere. And John traveled all across Europe. No one would have her. He tried Chile, Argentina, with no luck until his quest eventually landed him in Piso, Peru, where he finally lay her to rest. In 2007, there was a massive earthquake in the town, and one of the few tombs left untouched, Sarah Ellen Roberts. A number of Pisco residents say that on some nights you can still see a ghostly woman wandering the streets. Number 8, the Encantado. The mythical creature is said to stalk the forests of the Amazon, residing in the river. But sometimes they come out at night, often shape-shifting into human form. Their real form is that of a serpent or dolphin-like appearance. They're very attracted to parties or social gatherings, especially if there's music. The Encantado are said to be exceptional musicians in human form, hypnotizing their victims with their musical abilities. Once it has its target in its grasp, it whisks them away, dragging them into the waters of the Amazon, never to be seen or heard from again. If it doesn't decide to take them away, though, these creatures are also known to incite madness or cause illness and death to their victims. So, if you do decide to visit the Amazon and cruise down the majestic river, just be cautious if you happen to come across a beautiful stranger in the dead of night with incredible musical talent. Next on the list, we have the Recoleta Cemetery in Argentina. This Buenos Aires cemetery has quite the storied history, with several notable Argentines having been buried there. One of the more harrowing tales of Rufina Cambaceres, who met a gruesome end at the cemetery. Honestly, this is one of my absolute worst fears. Rufina had a privileged life. She was born into a wealthy family. She was popular. She really lived it up. But unfortunately, it was short-lived. In 1902, she suddenly collapsed and was pronounced dead at only 19 years of age. She was placed in a coffin, and she was sealed at a mausoleum at this cemetery. But just a few days after her funeral, a graveyard worker was in her crypt and noticed that her coffin was slightly ajar. As to why he was in the crypt, I don't really know. I don't know what crypt keepers do. I tried to look it up. All I got were descriptions of the 90s Crypt Keeper series. Great show, but not really what I'm looking for, so let me know in the comments if you know. Anyway, the man opened her coffin, and to his horror saw that there were scratch marks on it. Rufina had been buried alive, essentially. Some say that her shadowy figure still roams through this cemetery at night. Number 6, the Rosario Mine. This mine, located in the Cerro Rico mountain in Potosi, Bolivia, is exceptionally dangerous. For centuries, miners have descended into the bowels of the earth, braving treacherous conditions in search of silver and other valuable minerals. The working environment is pretty harsh, with cramped and unstable tunnels, limited ventilation, and this constant threat of collapse. Miners work long hours, physically demanding labor, often exposed to harmful dust and toxic fumes, leading to health issues and a shortened life expectancy if they don't die in the mine. Over the centuries, millions of miners have met their end here, but despite all that, the nature of the job continues today, and with all the deaths that have taken place there, it's no surprise that many of the miners believe it to be haunted by the spirits of those who perished in its depths. And many of them claim to have experienced eerie and unexplainable phenomenon within the dark confines of this mine. Miners often pay homage to El Tío, the god of the underworld, whose altar sits at the entrance to the mine. Miners offer cigarettes, alcohol, cocoa leaves to El Tío in hopes of receiving protection and good fortune. Starting off this list with the Comedy Store in West Hollywood. The Comedy Store in West Hollywood had a reputation for being haunted for a long time due to a slew of reported supernatural experiences experiences and encounters. Staff, comedians, and patrons have shared stories of unexplained sounds, shadowy figures, and eerie sensations while in the building, especially in the basement. Footsteps have been heard echoing in empty halls, and snarling sounds have also been reported. Some attribute these occurrences to the building's past, as it was formerly a nightclub called Zero, a very hip place in the 40s and 50s, but with ties to the mob. And the basement is where a lot of problem people were dealt with. Tragic events that have taken place there over the years may have left behind some lingering energy. Visitors have described sudden drops in temperature, objects moving on their own, and a general sense of someone or something watching them. The Comedy Store's paranormal stories have become so well known that there are even ghost tours of the club's supposedly haunted basement nowadays. Number 9, the Warner Pacific Theater, now called the Hollywood Pacific Theater. This historic building is said to be haunted by Sam Warner, one of the Warner brothers, who put a ton of hard work and money into opening this theater, the first to be built for sound. In 1927, the theater was going to hold the premiere for the Warner Bros. Produced film, The Jazz Singer, the very first sound film, or talkie as it was referred to at the time, but there were construction delays, so the film was going to have its premiere in New York instead. But just one day before this big premiere, Sam Warner would collapse, dead of a cerebral hemorrhage. He never got to hear the reviews, he never got to enjoy the fruits of his labor, but some have reported feeling his ghostly presence in the theater to this very day, or even catching a glimpse of his ghostly presence making his way through the building. The elevator has been seen going up and down by itself, and apparently Sam's ghost likes moving things around in his old office or even scratching at the door. Number 8, we have the Hollywood sign itself. Legend has it that the ghost of Peg Entwistle, an aspiring actress in the 1920s and early 30s, roams the area near the sign. Peg Entwistle was a struggling actress who never really made it. On September 18, 1932, a hiker discovered a shoe, purse, and jacket close to the sign. They soon found her body in a ravine below the sign, and it was determined that Entwistle had climbed a workman's ladder and jumped from the letter H of the sign. It's said that her spirit still haunts the area to this day. Some say they spotted a ghostly figure or felt a cold breeze on the path leading to the sign. Locals and hikers have reported sensing an unexplainable presence or catching a glimpse of a ghostly woman in old-fashioned clothing ascending the hill as nighttime falls over the Hollywood Hills. Some claim to hear faint echoes of her footsteps or hear her cries carried by the wind. Next on the list we have Griffith Park. The sprawling urban park is known for its fun attractions and natural beauty. I mean, it is a park after all. Covering over 4,000 acres, the park offers a mix of hiking trails, picnic areas, the iconic Griffith Observatory, and even a zoo, although it's abandoned. But aside from all that nice stuff, Griffith Park has also a reputation for being haunted. Legend says that the land was cursed in 1863 by a girl named Donna Petronilla, whose uncle, a wealthy land baron, cut her out of his will. And one of the most famous haunted spots within the park is the Griffith Observatory itself, sitting on a hill overlooking the city. This historic landmark has had a number of ghost stories associated with it. Some claim to have seen shadowy figures moving about the observatory after hours, while others report hearing unexplained footsteps echoing throughout the halls. Another haunted hotspot is the old zoo area, abandoned in sometime in the 1960s or late 50s. The dilapidated remnants of cages have fueled tales of these ghostly animal sounds and the figures of former zoo inhabitants. Ghost animals. I've never heard that one before, though. I like it. Local lore also says Griffith Park has some darker stories, including alleged occult activity. Number 6, the Colorado Street Bridge. The Colorado Street Bridge in Pasadena, California has a spooky reputation due to its sad history. It was completed in 1913, and it's a gorgeous bridge, but it's known for more than just its impressive looks. Back during the Great Depression, a lot of people ended their lives on the bridge, which has led to its pretty on-the-nose nickname. You can probably imagine what it is. So, because of these tragedies, folks started telling stories about the bridge being haunted. People who have been there talk about strange things like ghostly apparitions and shadows that don't make sense, or hearing whispers or disembodied voices. There's one story about a woman being seen crossing the bridge, cars swerving in order to avoid hitting her, only for the woman to vanish out of thin air. Stories like this have made the bridge pretty famous in books, movies, and even TV. And at number 5, we have the Hollywood Forever Cemetery. First used in 1899, there are tons of Hollywood celebrities buried there, and it's still an active cemetery to this day. It's also said to be incredibly haunted. Are there any cemeteries that aren't haunted though? Visitors have reported all kinds of paranormal activity here. You have your standard haunted place, like kind of stuff, cold spots, disembodied voices, semi-translucent people roaming around. But one that comes up a lot apparently is that of a woman crying by a lake on the cemetery grounds. Of course, she vanishes when you approach her. I do imagine there is plenty of crying going on in a cemetery because of all the dead people, but this is different. Waterfront Station in Vancouver, Canada is said to be one of the most haunted places in the city, and after reading about it, I can certainly see why. This subway station is busy even when there aren't any living people roaming around in it. Guards especially will see all kinds of weird stuff at the station, especially late at night. Phantom footsteps are reported, the ghost of a 1920s flapper, the ghost of a railway worker named Hub Clark, who died in an accident outside the station when he was decapitated by an oncoming train. His headless ghost is said to wander the tunnels at night with a lantern. Then there's the ghost of the old woman. So a guard was on break one night, fixing up some food in the kitchen when he nearly fainted. Lurking in the corner was this old woman, and at first he thought a passenger just snuck onto the staff area and given him a fright, but then she moved closer. More specifically, she floated closer. The guard booked it out of the kitchen, but the ghostly old woman tormented him in his dreams that night, and the following night, and the one after. He was so freaked out by the experience that he even saw the old hag in reflections and mirrors. He started feeling this need to paint her, thinking maybe this would release her from his mind if he just put her down on canvas. So he did, and he left her portrait in the old kitchen. After that, no more nightmares, and it's said that every time the painting is moved, the person moving it has terrible nightmares of the old woman, forcing them to return the piece back to its original spot.
Next up, we have Bank subway station located in London. The station, which is an intersection of 4 different subway lines and was previously used as a wartime bomb shelter, sits directly next to the Bank of England, which just so happens to have been built directly on top of a graveyard. So really, it's no surprise that the area is haunted. And I mean, if you're a ghoulish ghost, it really just makes sense to take up residency in the dark London underground, sitting directly next to a desecrated graveyard. The most common apparition seen in the tunnels of Bank Station is commonly referred to as the Black Nun. She roams the tunnels cloaked in billowing black robes and disappears into thin air anytime visitors of the tunnel attempt to make direct eye contact with her. Maintenance and security staff at the station have shared many stories of having seen not only the Black Nun, but also other apparitions appearing in the tunnels beneath the city, which has led to a number of them requesting to be transferred to service other stations, and honestly, I don't blame them. It sounds pretty creepy, especially, you know, at night in the dark tunnels if you're working security. I know they do a lot of maintenance work at night, so they don't disrupt the lines in the day. It's a no from me.
We head back to the London Underground again with Elephant and Castle. The London Underground opened in 1863, so it's the oldest metro system in the world. Lots of history. Spoiler alert, there are a lot of London subway or tube stations on this list. Elephant and Castle is no exception, said to be haunted by an entity known as the girl on the train. Drivers have reported pulling into the station and watching this young woman walk onto the train, but this woman never gets off. At least they never see her leave. Drivers will also hear odd tapping sounds around the station, sounds that stop as soon as they reach the next station, and people working or passing through Elephant and Castle late at night will often report hearing footsteps behind them. even when the platform is completely empty.
Next up, we've got the Stockholm subway system home to the Silverpillen Arrow, a shiny ghost train that travels through the underground tunnels of Stockholm, stopping at random stations at random times. Reports from people who have seen the train vary, with some claiming the ghostly vessel to have been completely empty when it came to a halt in front of them, and others claiming that when the ghost train's doors opened, they did so to reveal subway cars full of ghost passengers. It is believed, but has never been confirmed as far as we know, I suppose, that any living person to step foot into the Silverpillen will be immediately taken to Kimlinge, the subway station of the dead, which is a real but abandoned station in Stockholm. And when they arrive at this station, they will become stuck forever.
Another spooky London Underground station is Bethnal Green, and it's easy to see why. The station has a very tragic backstory. Because of how deep the station is, it was the ideal place to be if bombs were being dropped overhead, and during World War II, London was under constant threat of air raids. On March 3rd of 1943, a retaliatory air raid by the Germans was to be expected after the Royal Air Force attacked on the 1st and 2nd. So residents were being ushered underground, but an accident happened. Someone tripped and fell towards the bottom of the stairs. This led to others falling down, and things quickly escalated into a full-on mass panic. Part of the problem was it was nighttime and the staircase was blacked out, so people could barely see, and on top of that you had the threat of an air raid, so it was easy for things to get out of hand. 173 people died, having been trampled, and about 60 others had to be hospitalized. So it's said that till this day, especially on the night of March 3rd, you can hear the ghostly sounds of panic slowly rising in intensity until it becomes almost unbearable.
Next up, we've got Lower Bay subway station located in Toronto, Canada. I actually visited Lower Bay last year for a Rick and Morty installation, which is what I do with my Saturdays. Those of you from Toronto likely already know that Bay Station is an active subway station located pretty much in the heart of downtown Toronto. What those of you who are and aren't from Toronto might not know is that beneath Bay Station lies an abandoned subway station known simply as Lower Bay. Lower Bay Station was a bit of an experiment that lasted 6 months in the year 1966. It was designed to make the subway system run smoother, but it had the opposite effect, and so it was shut down. Today, the station is used to train new operators to move trains between the two subway lines currently in use, for platform surface experiments, and for film and television. Oh, and it's also the home of the Lady in Red. Finally, not a lady in white. Awesome. A female ghost dressed in all red, believed to have either been pushed or to have jumped in front of a train at the station during its short time in operation. Those who have had the opportunity to visit the forgotten station have reported feeling random cold pockets of air, feeling an eerie sensation, and even seeing the woman roaming along the tracks in despair. Personally, I was too excited to be getting the chance to see a life-size sculpture of Rick and Morty, so I wasn't too concerned about the ghosts.
Shanghai also has a haunted metro station, Xiaobo Road. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Its nickname, though, the Ghost Station. Now, for one, this station can be a bit of a nuisance. Apparently, trains break down here a lot. Workers will say that they often can't find anything wrong with the train, and train doors will also malfunction here. But if you're not dealing with the annoyance of a delay or finicky doors, you have a ghost to worry about, a violent one. One story goes that a man fell from the platform as the train was pulling in, but witnesses claimed it didn't look like he'd intentionally jumped or accidentally fallen. It looked like he'd been pulled by some unseen thing. And at night, when the station is closed, workers will occasionally hear what sounds like a woman maniacally laughing in a dark corner of the platform, but there's never anyone there when they walk over to check.
Next up, we have Gates Avenue Station in New York. On the morning of February 14th of 2005, a young man by the name of Rashawn Brazel set out to meet his mother for lunch. He was never seen alive again. 3 days after he went missing, his torso, legs, and an arm were found in the tunnels of the station. station wrapped in trash bags, and sometime after, his other arm was located at a recycling plant close by. It is clear that he was killed, but what is not clear is who did it and why. Almost 10 years later, and the case remains unsolved. While police are unsure of whether or not Rashawn was killed inside of the tunnel or if his body was simply brought there after the fact, the haunting scene staged by the killer at Gates Avenue Station in the winter of 2005 caused much discomfort and sorrow amongst the community. To add insult to injury, after Rashawn Brazel's death, many people connected to Rashawn began receiving cryptic messages from someone claiming to be his killer. Even still, the case remains unsolved.
Next up, we have a section of the London metro system that's so haunted, the train operators are scared to go through it. It's called the Kennington Loop. The Kennington Loop, part of the Northern Line, is a spot where the train loops around. People aren't allowed to hop on or off at this section, and some train operators hate the Kennington Loop, not just because it's got a tight bend, but also because of some eerie happenings. The story goes that back in the 50s, a guy tried to jump between the cars at Kennington, but ended up being run over by the train. And even when the trains emptied out, drivers have claimed to hear voices and doors clattering like there's someone on board. One night, the train operator heard doors banging down the length of the train, getting closer and closer, so he finally decided to go and check it out, but found nearly half the doors flung wide open and nobody there.
And finally, to finish off our list today, we have Farringdon Station located in London. Farringdon opened in 1863 as part of the Metropolitan Railway, the world's first underground railway line. And each year, over 25 million passengers utilize its services. But here's the thing. Prior to the construction of the Underground Railway, a young woman by the name of Anne Naylor was carelessly laid to rest on the grounds. Anne Naylor was an apprentice in the hat-making trade, and one night her boss became very angry with her and took her life in a fit of rage. He then dumped her body on the grounds of what is now Farringdon Station, as you may have guessed by context clues. Many people who have visited the station with the intention of connecting with the paranormal have reported hearing soul-crushing screams and pleading whispers coming from seemingly nowhere. Overnight security staff have also reported sudden and unexplainable drops in temperature, generally after dark and in the areas where the screams are most often heard. Flickering lights and CCTV cameras going haywire are also a common occurrence at the station, which is said to be one of the most haunted underground subway stations, that's a mouthful, in the world.
Humber College Lakeshore campus. Oh, Humber, my former college. Shout out to the acting for film and television program and television writing and producing programs. Now, if you've ever been to Humber, you know that the campus is haunted. The Lakeshore Psychiatric Hospital was in operation on what is now Humber College's Lakeshore grounds from 1890 to 1979. Now, there's been ghosts sighted there, and it's a nurse. She was apparently having an affair with a patient, and then for some reason she chose to hang herself on the apple tree in the orchard, Humber Business School professor Steve Bang said. In the cottage area of the college, specifically Building G, is haunted. The nurse was spotted in many cases in G Building, which is where people used to see her through the windows at night until the windows were boarded up. And I will say, Building G always gave me the creeps. Also, there's tunnels underground connecting all the buildings, and it's said that's how nurses transfer patients around the ground. Now, I remember when I first found the door to the tunnel, my friend Summer and I were so confused, as you can see here. Now, they also use the tunnels to film famous TV shows and movies like Suicide Squad, which is pretty cool. Also, I think my dorm my first year was haunted as I heard knocking coming from inside my closet, our lights flickered 24/7, and I always felt like someone was watching me. Number 9. Fairmont Royal York. Right across from Union Station, this hotel is full of history. Now, there are 5 main hauntings here. The first is in regards to the Fairmont Royal York's Crystal Ballroom, or should I say the former Crystal Ballroom. The Fairmont's Crystal Ballroom was closed down permanently because it violated a number of fire codes. However, since the closure of the ballroom, many people who have stayed in the rooms directly underneath say they hear noises such as music and talking coming from the floor above. Now, it's also said that the elevator will sometimes take you up to the ballroom ballroom floor without anyone ever pushing the button. The second haunting is of a former banquet porter who was found hanging in the stairwell of the 19th floor, an area where the meeting rooms are held. Once in a while, staff report seeing the porter's upper body float around the 19th floor. The third haunting / unexplained event is the sound of children laughing and running up and down the halls. Many guests have complained about children, but many also admit to opening their doors and seeing an empty hallway. Then there's a man on the 8th floor who roams around wearing a purple jacket. However, that is all that is known about this ghostly figure. And finally, there are stories that a very wealthy man visited the hotel with his new bride, and himself and her now both lurk around the hotel at night. He mostly dwells in the stairwells, but the bride can be found in the room she stayed that night. Number 8. The Keg Mansion. Now a restaurant, this house once belonged to the Masseys. Lillian was the only daughter of Hart Massey, and she died in 1915 while living in today's Keg Mansion house. According to the legend, the tragedy of Lillian's maid happened just after her death. The maid was downstairs as a dying Lillian lay in her bed, and when the doctor announced that she had died, it said that the maid was witnessed walking out to the main hall, up the stairs to the oval vestibule, and she fashioned a noose, wrapping one end to the wood railing. She hoisted herself up and over the side. House guests found her swinging above the foyer right near the grand staircase. Now most believe her death was due to grief, and over the years numerous guests and staff have allegedly seen the maid's body dangling over the stairs and then disappearing. Guests have also reportedly seen ghostly children playing throughout the restaurant, and the second floor washroom is said to be haunted as well. Number 7. Gibraltar Point Lighthouse. Built in 1808, the Gibraltar Point Lighthouse is reportedly home to the ghost of its first keeper, John Paul Reddell Muller. He was known to keep a keg of beer on hand at his cottage to share with friends. Just north of the lighthouse was a blockhouse guarded by soldiers from Fort York. The soldiers would often row down from Blockhouse Bay to visit him, and legend has it that back in 1815 when 3 soldiers were visiting, John cut them off since he thought they already had enough to drink. A deadly brawl broke out and John mysteriously vanished. No one knew what happened to him, and the story of his disappearance was passed down, and several decades later, the 4th lighthouse keeper, George Duran, found human remains buried beneath the ground near the lighthouse on Toronto Island. Now today, visitors ascending the lighthouse have claimed to see ghostly shadows and felt the floor rumble beneath their feet. Number 6. Mackenzie House. William Lyon Mackenzie was the first mayor of Toronto, and in 1837 he led a rebellion to overthrow British rule. Now Mackenzie moved into the Bond Street home in 1859 and he died there in 1961. Mackenzie's wife Isabel died 12 years later, and in the 1950s live-in caretakers worked and lived at the Mackenzie House, and it was a story by Miss Edmund that eventually made newspaper headlines. Miss Edmund one night claimed that she was awoken by a soft touch on the shoulder. When she opened her eyes, Miss Edmund said there was a lady there bending over her, looking into her face, but a few seconds later the lady vanished. Now a few weeks later, Miss Edmund claims it happened again, but this time she said the lady drew back her hand and slapped her in the face before vanishing, as a source has said. Then in the 1960s, a type of exorcism took place in the house, and it's recorded to air on television, which made the museum an even bigger draw for fans of supernatural phenomena. A woman's ghost has also been seen roaming the hallways, phantom footsteps have been heard, and a basement printing press is said to start up all on its own. In 1960, this house was donated to the city of Toronto, and you can take tours of it today.
Next up, we have Grauman's Chinese Theater. This is probably one of the most famous movie theaters in the world. Its forecourt has concrete tiles with the handprints and signatures of various different stars, and the building itself takes inspiration from ancient Chinese architecture. The theater was opened by Sid Grauman in 1927, and apparently he had built hidden rooms in the theater for his famous friends to party in, and there was like a buzzer system that would allow them inside these rooms. Those hidden rooms have since been sealed off, but one famous story tells of an employee in the 90s who kept hearing buzzers going off in some of these old secret rooms, although the buzzers had long been disconnected as well. There's also said to be the ghost of a former employee of the theater named Fritz, who took his own life behind the movie screen. And there's also apparently a ghost of a young girl in old-timey clothing named Annabelle, who roams about the theater at night. Coming in at number 3, we have the Pantages Theater. This theater, located in the heart of Hollywood, is a historic building with a reputation for being haunted by ghouls and ghosts. Built in 1930, the theater has hosted a variety of performances over the years, vaudeville acts, films, and back in 1949, Howard Hughes, the millionaire aviator, took control of RKO Studios and its main theater, Pantages. He set up his fancy offices in the second floor, and his presence is often still felt even today, apparently. Hughes seems to have a unique signal, the smell of cigarette smoke, which seems to announce his arrival, although he disliked smoking. A ghostly apparition of him, tall and thin in a simple suit, has been reported being seen walking through a wall that used to be his office doorway. But he's not the only specter said to haunt the building. In 1932, a woman passed away in the mezzanine during a show. Over time, people started hearing a woman's voice singing in the theater, sometimes during the day and even late at night after everyone left. The staff had a theory. The woman might have been an aspiring singer who came to enjoy musicals in the 30s. Now she seems to be living her dream by performing on stage herself. Engineers have even caught her voice on a live performance microphone in one show, even though no one could actually see her on stage. Coming in at number 2, we have the Cecil Hotel. If you have any interest in haunted buildings or just creepy internet content, there's no doubt that you've heard of the Cecil Hotel. This historic hotel, now an affordable housing complex known as the Stay on Main, is pretty famous for a series of dark incidents. A lot of deaths have taken place there, and the circumstances of some of them are quite mysterious, some of which have never even been solved. Probably the most famous case this building is connected to is Elisa Lam, who had gone missing for a while with nothing but footage of her kind of erratic behavior captured in one of the elevator's security cameras. Her body was eventually found, however. She had managed to make her way to the roof, where she fell into an open water tank. She was discovered after guests had reported their water running black and having an odd taste. The Cecil was also home to some pretty notorious people, like the Night Stalker himself, Richard Ramirez. There are so many dark stories surrounding this place that many believe it to be haunted by countless spirits of those who met their end within its walls. And finally, we have the Roosevelt Hotel. The Hollywood Roosevelt is rumored to be haunted by the ghost of Marilyn Monroe. There used to be a mirror in the lobby where people would report spotting her reflection when taking a picture in front of it. Room 928 is also supposedly haunted by the ghost of Montgomery Clift, who lived in the room while filming Here to Eternity. There have been a number of stories where people hear the sounds of a trumpet playing coming from the room, even when the room is vacant. The hotel switchboard is also known to receive calls from empty rooms, and faucets and lights have been known to turn on by themselves as well. I like the sound of this. Nothing necessarily harmful going on. You got some trumpet playing in the room next to you. Your lights turn out without you even having to get up. You can snap a picture with Marilyn Monroe on your way out. When you look at it that way, it sounds like a pretty relaxing time.
At number 10 is Goatman's Bridge, USA. Goatman's Bridge is more formally known as the Old Alton Bridge in Argyle. Now, dating back to the 1930s, locals have told tales of the specter of a strange half-man, half-goat creature lurking beneath the bridge. The Goatman is said to stand over 7 feet tall with big horns and glowing red eyes, which to me just sounds like the devil, but I mean, hey, Goatman is a cool name. Now, some believe the Goatman remains dormant for years at a time and awakes only to hunt for prey. Now, the Goatman isn't the only spirit on this bridge, as to keep him company is another spirit, that of a young mother crying out eternally for her lost child. Residents making their way over the bridge late at night have reported hearing her ghostly wails. Now, some say the two ghosts are connected, and that years ago, the Goatman stole the young woman's child, and when she found out, she threw herself from the bridge, and her spirit has haunted it ever since. Now, ghostly figures and strange lights are also said to appear in the surrounding woods, as well as reports of visitors being touched, grabbed, and having rocks thrown at them. Now, I already don't like bridges because of heights and being over bodies of water, but being on a haunted bridge with a ghost called the Goatman, no thank you. Number 9. Diplomat Hotel, Philippines. The Dominican Hill Retreat House was built in 1913 atop a hill in the famed Philippine city of Pines. With the outbreak of World War II, it became a camp for refugees escaping the Japanese army, but was eventually invaded. It was once occupied by refugees, nuns, and soldiers, but was bombed by the American Armed Forces. People were taken advantage of and mistreated, tormented, and had their heads cut off. In the 1970s, the war-torn building was converted to the sophisticated and beautiful Diplomat Hotel, but the hotel was shut down by the 80s and left abandoned. The deserted, deteriorating building became infamous for being one of the most haunted ruins in the country. Currently, the old hotel is now under rehabilitation by the national government as a heritage and nature park, but many people have seen headless apparitions at night and reported hearing screams, cries, banging on doors, and other strange and desperate noises. Some believe the building is haunted by the restless spirits of its grim history. It's even considered by ghost believers to be a ghost magnet due to all the tragedy here. Number 8. Castle of Good Hope, South Africa. Castle of Good Hope in Cape Town, South Africa was built in the 17th century by the Dutch East India Company. It's the country's oldest colonial building, originally serving as a replenishment station for ships passing the treacherous waters of the Cape. The first reported paranormal occurrence was when the apparition of a tall gentleman was seen in 1915 on one of the castle's ramparts. The man wasn't seen again until 1947, when he was seen regularly over 2 weeks. He would often be seen jumping off the side of one of the castle walls and walking between the basins. One of the most popular stories associated with the castle involves the former governor Peter Guybers van Noot. He died on April 23, 1728, the same day he had sentenced 7 soldiers to death after they were caught trying to desert the military. It's believed one of the soldiers placed a curse on him and demanded he come watch the execution, which he didn't. Later that day, Peter was found dead, slumped over his desk with a look of terror on his face. Now, another famous haunting is the Lady in Grey. She has been witnessed running through the castles, holding her face and crying hysterically. However, since a woman's body was found during recent excavations, her ghost hasn't been reported. Then sometimes in the 1700s, a soldier was found dangling from the bell rope in the bell tower, which overlooked the entrance of the castle. After his death, the bell tower was sealed off. However, the bell has been known to strike off its own accord to this day. There's also the ghost of a black dog who has been known to pounce on unsuspecting visitors, then vanish into thin air. Now that is so spooky. Number 7. The Forbidden City, China. No trip to Beijing is complete without a visit to the Forbidden City, China, former imperial palace that now serves as a museum. But you might not know that the popular tourist destination has quite the reputation among supernatural enthusiasts. During its 600-year tenure as a palace, the complex had its fair share of deaths, whether from jealous concubines poisoning one another or executions performed at the emperor's behest. Needless to say, there have been many reports of strange phenomena since the palace open to the public in the 1940s. The most common story involved a woman dressed in white while strolling around the grounds and sobbing, flute music being heard during the dark hours of the night from the empty city, and ghost dogs have been seen running through the narrow corridors at the edges of the labyrinth that is the Forbidden City. Number 6. Lawang Sewu, Indonesia. Lawang Sewu, meaning Thousand Doors, was built in 1917 by the Dutch East Indian Railway Company. During World War II, the Japanese occupied Indonesia and the Japanese forces took over Lawang Sewu. When the Dutch retook Semarang in October 1945 at the Battle of Semarang, Dutch soldiers used the tunnel underneath a building to sneak into the city. A struggle ensued and numerous Indonesian soldiers died as well as 5 employees. Now, the basement of B building was used as a prison where many people were treated harshly, with many of them being executed. Due to this, Lawang Sewu is believed to be one of the most haunted places in Indonesia. Among the many ghosts that have been reported here, the most popular and often cited spirit is the Dutch woman. She had ended her own life there and was captured on film during a TV program. Headless spirits are also known to wander its corridors and grounds, and the basement of the B building is believed to be haunted by a kuntilanak, I hope I said that right, which is a vampiric, vengeful female spirit.
Next up, we have the Lalaurie Mansion. The Lalaurie Mansion in New Orleans has a notorious history dating back to the mid-1800s. Built by Dr. Louis Lalaurie, who lived there with his wife Delphine in 1832, the mansion's dark secrets became public knowledge around 1834. Reports of cruelty and mistreatment of slaves led to a pretty shocking discovery of a torture chamber in the attic, revealing the gruesome reality of their actions, especially on Delphine's part. She was a full-on sadistic, cruel, evil woman. It reminds me a lot of Elizabeth Bathory, but worse, and some of the things that went on here are unimaginable. She would like break her victims' bones repeatedly, just completely deforming them. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. They were complete monsters. Over the years, the mansion gained a reputation, of course, for being haunted, with claims of ghostly apparitions and eerie occurrences going on there. Local legends and ghost stories have attributed the haunting to the tormented spirits of the victims who suffered within its walls. Next on the list, we have the Sally House. The Sally House in Atchison, Kansas now stands completely abandoned due to its rather dark history. Several deaths are known to have taken place in the home, including the home's original owner, Michael Finney, Richard Edwin Finney, William True, Agnes Finney True, and a young girl named Sally, who had collapsed due to a severe abdominal pain. She was brought to the home by her mother so that the town doctor who lived there could tend to her. He determined that she had appendicitis and that there was no time to delay a surgery. He started the surgery before the anesthesia had fully taken effect, and Sally woke up on the operating table when she suddenly died, apparently from shock. Her spirit was said to linger within the home, and years later, 1993, a young couple moved in. They claimed that their dog would bark at random empty spots in the home, especially in the upstairs nursery. Soon the man would begin receiving scratches on his body from an unknown source. The room that was formerly used for operations would become cold at times, and objects would sometimes move on their own. Suffice to say, that couple didn't live there for long, and the home is now used for paranormal investigations, where paranormal occurrences are still reported on to this day. Barry Pomeroy Castle, located in Devon, England. This place has a history dating back to the 15th century. It was originally built by the Pomeroy family, but later came under the ownership of the Seymours, a prominent noble family closely connected to the Tudor royalty. Over the years, the castle witnessed a series of renovations and expansions, but despite its impressive architecture and kind of picturesque setting, I mean, it's a castle, it looks beautiful, Barry Pomeroy Castle has also gained a reputation for being haunted, especially after having been abandoned in the late 17th century. Stories of supernatural occurrences and sightings have been reported on the property. One of the most famous tales involves the White Lady, believed to be the spirit of Margaret Pomeroy, who was allegedly imprisoned by her jealous sister and left to starve to death. Another ghostly figure is said to be the Blue Lady, and this one's really creepy though, because it's the soul of Eleanor Seymour, who reportedly fell to her death from the tower, and the Blue Lady is said to lure unsuspecting men to dangerous parts of the castle, especially the tower, where they'll fall to their death. Some claim to hear unexplained sounds and experience other strange phenomena. Tourists and visitors have reported feelings of unease and the sensation of being watched while exploring the ruins. And finally, we have the Amityville Horror House. Everyone has heard that name before. There have been tons of horror movies and books based on the goings-on in this house, and the tales surrounding it have become pretty famous in American folklore. For starters, 23-year-old Ron DeFeo Jr. had taken the lives of both his parents and his 4 siblings in the home as they slept. In 1975, the Lutz family purchased the home, but after just 28 days, they left, claiming to have experienced a string of paranormal occurrences. They said to have seen ooze sliding down their walls. There was a strange odor in the home, probably from the ooze. They'd hear doors slam on their own, as well as other objects moving, and they encountered swarms of flies right in the middle of winter. Even if there was no demonic spirit involved, yeah, I'd be out of that house with all that gross crap going on too.
Highway 666, the 6th branch of the famous Route 66. It really doesn't get more never drive at 3 a.m. than this. Today, the highway is known as Highway 191. The name was changed due to the belief that the many accidents, apparitions, and creepy mishaps were caused by the highway having adorned the devil's number for so long. Unfortunately, however, changing the name has not changed the nature of the road, which remains haunted, dangerous, and incredibly creepy to this day. Phantom trucks, ghostly passengers appearing in back seats, see-through hitchhikers in torn white gowns, and hellhounds ready to rip the rubber directly directly off of your tires are a common sight for those driving along the roadway at night. One woman recounted a drive she had taken along the highway with her husband, saying, "At first everything seemed normal. Her and her husband were the only ones on the road when all of a sudden a massive truck appeared out of nowhere that seemed as though it was headed straight for the pair, charging so fast towards them that sparks were flying from the wheels and flames were coming out of the smokestack. The pair pulled off the road and waited for the truck to pass, and when it did, it disappeared into the night." I'm gonna go ahead and say avoid this roadway at night if you and your tires, which like I said are subject to be ripped apart by literal hellhounds, want to make it to your destination in one piece.
There are plenty of haunted hotspots along Route 66, but one of the most famous is an abandoned truck stop in Villa Ridge, the Tri-County Truck Stop, which opened in 1971 and closed in 2006. Ever since its closing though, people have reported strange stuff going on at the site, and there have been plenty of paranormal investigations in the abandoned building. A team of paranormal investigators called the Paranormal Task Force investigated the site in 2006, and the guy leading the investigation, Greg Myers, said they experienced some pretty weird stuff. Almost as soon as they arrived, a coffee pot came flying off a shelf. It's a nice welcome. He also added, quote, "On the first night we were setting up a camera on the second floor. I was holding a door shut and something was trying to open it from the other side. We were actually fighting back and forth." Other investigators have spotted a man in red flannel in the bathroom vanishing as soon as he's spotted, and other objects like light bulbs being hurled. And people have also apparently seen orbs and spectral shapes floating through the building, some which have been caught on camera.
Dead Man's Curve, located in Claremont County in Ohio. The curve is a turning intersection, a dangerous one where Route 222 meets State Route 125, and it's also said to be the most haunted place in all of Ohio. Although there have been many deaths at the intersection, the majority of hauntings are attributed to 5 young men who were killed there on October 19th of 1969 after their 1968 Impala was hit head-on by a 1969 Roadrunner going more than 100 miles an hour. Since then, the curve has been haunted by the deceased young men who appear as faceless hitchhikers hoping to catch a ride from someone who can take them away from the place where they met their grisly end.
Next, we head to Rachel, Nevada with Route 375. This is a pretty notorious stretch of road, known for its supposed extraterrestrial activity. So much so that it's been nicknamed the Extraterrestrial Highway. UFO fanatics from all of the world flock here year after year, hoping to catch an unidentified object in the sky or hopefully find some clue as to what's really going on in Area 51. Driving along this road, you'll get closer to the place than you'd probably ever hope. Now, aside from Area 51 though, there are other interesting spots along the route. There are old atomic bomb sites, lots of other military facilities, and on top of all the alien stuff, there's said to be plenty of paranormal weirdness, vanishing apparitions along the road, phantom headlights, and for everyone with a clown phobia, you may want to make sure you plan your route so that you don't end up having to spend a night at the Clown Motel, which is exactly what it sounds like. A clown-themed motel filled with ceramic clown dolls, puppets, life-size statues, you name it. Definitely where I'd be wanting to spend the night, but maybe not for everybody.
Highway 5, located in Lynn, Alabama. It was what was once a normal highway became a hotbed for paranormal activity after a young woman was killed one night in the late 20th century. A young woman and her boyfriend had been making their way home from prom when the pair got into a vicious fight. Not being able to bear another moment spent arguing with her partner, the woman decided to exit the vehicle, and in a fit of anger, her boyfriend drove off, leaving her all alone in the middle of the night on an empty highway with no shelter, sidewalks, or anyone to help for miles around. She was determined though, and so she began walking along the highway in hopes of making it home by sunrise. Unfortunately, however, she was struck by a truck in a hit and run and left to spend the rest of the night dying a slow, painful death in a ditch next to the road. Her body was discovered the next morning, and her spirit has been there ever since. She's been seen walking along the highway aimlessly in the hopes of one day being able to finally make it back home to her family. Those who see her on the road road and stop for help are greeted with a pretty creepy sight of a woman mangled and distressed who disappears when they finally get close enough to speak to her.
Route 2A in Maine is said to be one of the most haunted stretches of road in all of the US. Not only do you have loads of ghost stories, but it really is a pretty dangerous road. Lots of deadly accidents have happened here, especially in the winter, where the conditions are said to be absolutely brutal. Tons of sharp turns and blind corners, so it's a pretty notorious road as is. One of the most famous ghost stories is the Screaming Woman. A number of travelers driving along the road at night will report spotting a woman screaming by the side of the road, desperate for help, saying that her husband is trapped in a car wreck, so she asks to be driven further up the road where the accident is, but somewhere along the journey, the woman disappears. The story goes that one winter night, a newly married couple was driving along the road when they swerved and hit a utility pole. The husband was killed instantly, but the woman was thrown from the vehicle. She limped along the road for a while in search of help, but there were no other vehicles. Eventually, she collapsed and died from the cold.
Zombie Road, the most haunted road in Missouri, located in Willwood, Missouri, just west of St. Louis, if you know it. Today, Zombie Road is not so much a road as it is a series of trails, but at one point it was a road, and that is why it is on this list today. Zombie Road was originally constructed in the 19th century, but it was shut down in 2010 to be repurposed as a bike path. Big mistake. Prior to the road being converted into a trail, Zombie Road is rumored to have been home to a crazed killer who escaped from a nearby asylum during the 1950s. He lived out the rest of his days hiding in shacks around the road and preying on young men and women who were unfortunate enough to have been walking around the area. Eventually he died, but unfortunately, according to legend, that didn't stop his reign of terror, because it is believed that the crazed man went on to continue his killing spree in the afterlife, which is how the road came to be known as Zombie Road. When the road was converted to trails, it seems as though the spirit of the man, along with the spirits of his victims, became quite pissed off, because instances of paranormal activity in the area became so bad that city officials were forced to create strict hours of operation for the trail that forbid entry after dark. If you've been, let me know.
A name like Shades of Death Road doesn't really inspire a whole lot of confidence now, does it? At least not in your safety. This road in New Jersey is said to be one of the most haunted places in the entire state. Even before motorized vehicles were a thing, this place had a dark reputation. There were some very violent incidents that took place along here. In the 1920s and 30s, there were some pretty famous incidents. The creepiest, though, is probably the woman who lobbed off her husband's head and then buried both parts of his body on either side of the road. Just off the road is a pretty famous lake too, Ghost Lake, which gets its name for a pretty obvious reason. Spooky stuff happens there. Oh, and there's ghosts. Apparently there's often said to be an eerie fog surrounding the lake, and the sky is perpetually bright, even in the middle of the night, almost like it's always twilight.
What better name is there for a haunted road than Mount Misery? But wait, there's more, because Mount Misery is actually part of a set of two haunted highways, Mount Misery Road and Sweet Hollow Road, that neighbor one another and share in an incredibly ominous and haunted past. According to legend, a woman named Mary killed her husband and their daughters while driving down Mount Misery one night, and then, unable to live with what she had done, she took her own life while driving down Sweet Hollow Road. Many people who have driven down the roads at night have claimed to have seen a police officer flagging them down, as he would have done to Mary after she killed her family. Now, when these people get closer to the officer, they realize that the man is actually missing the back of his head. It's a gruesome sight, and at that point they drive away. Also, others claim that at one time the road was connected to the entrance of an insane asylum, which was burned to the ground one night by an angry patient, and that if you listen closely while driving down the road in the dead of night, you can still hear the dying patient's fiery screams. That sounds like hell.
And finally, we have Highway 299 in California. This one passes by a ghost town. So that, along with other ghostly tales, and it's no surprise why it's said to be one of the most haunted roads in the country. Highway 299 is a long, lonely road running from east to west through the state of California, known for its eerie ghost stories. The most haunted part is said to be between Old Shasta City and Whiskey Town Lake. Old Shasta City was, at one time, a lively gold rush town, but it's now abandoned. All that remains of it now are the ruins of the old bakery, the blacksmith shop, Mason's Lodge, and courthouse. Inside the courthouse, there is an old jail where it's said the spirits of criminals who were tried and hanged still lurk around. And further up the road is Whiskey Town. And Whiskey Town is super interesting because there's an entire town submerged under a lake. When the Whiskey Town Dam was built decades ago, the town flooded and its residents had to leave. But some believe that not everyone left, and the spirits of the people who once lived in the town now haunt the lake. And even if they're not haunting it, just swimming where there's an entire old abandoned town below you, that's weird.
At number 5 is the Brasilia City Hall. You know, the Brasilia City Hall might seem like just another government building in Brazil's federal district, but it has been said that this place, sitting right there in Brasilia, has a history that might make you think twice before wandering in alone. Legend has it that this city hall wasn't always a place for politicians and meetings. No, it was once a mortuary where they stored a bunch of bodies before they were laid to rest. And get this, the place burned down at one point, only to rise from the ashes like a phoenix. Now, the creepy stuff doesn't stop there, ladies and gentlemen. People have reported doors slamming shut out of the blue, cabinets making a racket, and windows closing without a soul touching them. Oh, and there's a story about a guy who got locked in a room all by himself while there wasn't a single other person around. Pretty spooky. At number 4 is the road to Petropolis from Rio de Janeiro. As you head down this road from Rio de Janeiro, this road has some spooky stories attached to it. People driving there have claimed to see a strange thing. A blonde lady on the side of the road. I mean, it doesn't sound so strange, but what is odd is that she seems to be signaling for help, pointing at a broken down car and a body lying nearby. Now, when folks stop to assist, they freak out because it's the same woman they just saw moments ago, now lying lifeless by the car. And here's the creepy part. Poof! She and the car vanish into thin air. It's left those drivers feeling pretty shaken up. So if you're planning to take that road, just keep your eyes peeled and stay sharp. You never know what strange things might happen along the way. At number 3 is the Dream Beach. The Dream Beach in Sao Paulo, Itanheim, holds a chilling reputation among haunted spots in Brazil. Legend has it that the lingering spirits of a deceased couple haunt this very shore. Witnesses claim to have glimpsed these apparitions, two spectral figures, their forms decayed, vanishing into thin air without a trace. Even the beach's maintenance crew attest to eerie occurrences, citing unexplained voices and unsettling noises resonating across the deserted expanse in the dead of night. The spectral setting serves as a cautionary tale warning visitors to proceed with extreme caution lest they too become entangled in the mysteries that shroud the Dream Beach. And at number 2 is the road to Victoria. Truckers often drive down the road to Victoria in Campos, Rio de Janeiro, but there's something eerie about it. Lots of drivers say they've seen ghosts while on this road. These spooky figures suddenly appear in front of the trucks, causing drivers to panic and hit the brakes to avoid hitting them. Now, what's really weird is that as soon as the trucks stop, these ghostly figures just vanish. People believe they might be the spirits of construction workers who perished while building the road. It's like they're stuck there, tied to the construction work they're used to. That would really suck. Imagine being forced to haunt the place you worked for the rest of your afterlife. Boy, oh boy. It's a pretty scary place and lots of folks avoid driving there at night. It's the stories about these ghosts that make people think twice about taking that road. And coming in at number 1 is Snake Island in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Now this place technically isn't haunted, but if you ask me, it's definitely the scariest place on this list. This remote island is home to the golden lancehead vipers, whose venomous bite packs a punch that's 5 times stronger than any snake found in Brazil. But they're not the only snakes around, as in fact, here is where the snake density reaches nightmarish proportions. Imagine 1 to 5 snakes lurking in every square meter. Why are they so fearsome? Well, blame it on geography. When Snake Island parted ways with mainland Brazil 11,000 years ago, these snakes were forced to confront evolution by becoming aerial assassins. Yes, that's right, with no terrestrial prey to feast upon, they mastered tree dwelling and developed a venom 5 times more potent than their mainland kin. This lethal venom can eliminate birds instantly and even, get this, melt human flesh. So the Brazilian government wisely bans entry to this reptilian Eden. Very wisely. The Gavia Hippodrome. The Gavia Hippodrome in Brazil is famous for being seriously spooky. Back when they built it in the early 1900s, workers faced strange shadows and accidents during construction, leading some to believe that angry ghosts were disturbed from their resting place. The eerie occurrences continued even after construction ended. Shadows lurked around, workers mysteriously fell, and machines broke for no apparent reason. Some folks reckon that angry ghosts were mad about the construction on their resting spot. Even today, it's still creepy. People visiting or working there say they've seen ghostly figures in jockey outfits. But get this, it's not just a haunted spot, it's also where horse betting happens. Surprisingly, it's the only legitimately legal place for gambling in Brazil. So, while ghosts might be around, luck might just be on your side when you're betting at this place. At number 9 is Minas Gerais Cambucria, the Grand Hotel. I totally butchered that. It's got quite a spooky reputation. Room number 204 there is like the epicenter of all the creepy stuff. People who stayed there talk about feeling an eerie cold, hearing knocks on the door with no one around, and even seeing things that don't quite add up. I mean, it's not just 1 or 2 stories, there are multiple accounts of these strange happenings. Visitors have reported seeing things they can't explain, hearing noises that don't make sense, and feeling a weird vibe all around that place. The Grande Hotel seems to have this mysterious aura that makes people think twice about staying there. It's like something out of the horror movies, but hey, if you're into that kind of spooky stuff, maybe it's a place worth checking out if you dare. If you're enjoying this video so far, you can support this channel by pressing like, subscribing to Most Amazing, and ringing the notification bell, all of which is free. At number 8 is the Jolma Building. The Jolma Building in Brazil is known for being seriously spooky. Back in 1975, a huge fire tore through this 25-story building in just under 20 minutes because of an electrical problem. It was tragic. Over 486 people had lost their lives in the fire. Even after it was rebuilt and renamed Praça de Bandeira, eerie things just kept happening. People say they've spotted ghosts wandering around the halls and rooms, but what's even creepier is the story about the 13 souls who got stuck in the elevator during the fire. Some believe that these spirits are still hanging around, adding to the haunted vibe of the place. If you're someone who gets scared easily, this might not be the best spot for a visit. The history and the stories surrounding this building are enough to make your hair stand on end. At number 7 is the Serra da Abobora in the Amazon jungle. Deep within the Amazon jungle lies a spine-chilling spot. It's infamous for a haunting legend involving an ancient ghost named Urutau. I think. This spectral being supposedly lures unsuspecting souls with the mesmerizing melody of a beautiful bird song, but here's the catch. Once drawn near, dreadful things reportedly start to unfold. It's said that those who venture too close to this spirit face frightening and inexplicable occurrences. It's no wonder very few tread into this part of the Amazon. This eerie tale teaches us a sobering lesson that even in the midst of breathtaking places like in the Amazon, there might lurk spine-tingling mysteries best left undisturbed. At number 6 is the Petropolis Museum. The Petropolis Museum, also known as the Imperial Museum of Brazil, has an eerie reputation that's tied to its 19th century origins. Constructed within the Grand Palace of Emperor Dom Pedro II, this site is believed to house the ghost of the former emperor himself. Visitors and staff reported sightings of this apparition, claiming to have witnessed his spectral figure moving through the halls, particularly after nightfall. This spectral presence has turned the Petropolis Museum into one of Brazil's most notorious haunted places. Despite its spine-chilling reputation, there remains a curious allure for those brave enough to explore its haunted corridors and experience the unsettling atmosphere firsthand. For those with a strong heart and a penchant for the supernatural, this haunted locale in Brazil might offer an unforgettable, albeit potentially hair-raising experience.
The Blue Beacon truck stop in Wilmington, Ohio is known for being more than just a spot to refuel and rest. Truckers and travelers say it's haunted by the ghost of a truck driver who died in a car accident on the nearby highway. Of course, a truck stop in Ohio needs to be haunted. Isn't everything in Ohio haunted or weird? Ohio has a haunted Taco Bell, for God's sakes. Anyway, it's said that late at night when the fog rolls in and the world seems quieter, some drivers have reported feeling this eerie presence. It's like it feels as if someone is watching them, even when they're completely alone. Several truckers have shared stories of seeing a shadowy figure in their mirrors only for it to vanish when they turn around. Some have even claimed to see the ghostly trucker standing by the pumps, staring blankly into the distance. The truck stop staff have also experienced strange occurrences, strange, odd whispers, and the sound of footsteps echoing through the empty lot. One chilling account tells of a driver who heard a knock on his cab door late one night. When he opened it, there was no one there. He just felt a cold breeze brush past him. Others have reported hearing a faint, sorrowful voice on their radios, as if the ghostly trucker is still trying to communicate. Adairsville Travel Plaza in Georgia has been closed for about 25 years, but the abandoned building still stands, and apparently stuff still goes on there, just has nothing to do with the living. YouTuber and trucker Indiana Jack Trucker posted a video to his channel about the place. He had a buddy of his named Nate go to check it out and get some footage. Now, any abandoned place is gonna have an eerie vibe about it, and that's certainly the case here, but add the stories about truckers parking their rig here late at night to sleep, only to hear phantom knocks on their doors and windows, and it definitely bumps things up a notch. This next story is called Truck Stop Horror. It was posted by a now deleted Reddit user. In 2003, the Redditor met a trucker who said he wanted to take them on exciting adventures. This would be a big chance for the Redditor, who didn't really know anything outside their safe small town life. Little did they know, this was the start of a wild ride. The Redditor, who had never traveled outside their state, got a taste of the trucking life with their new boyfriend. Trucking had its fun moments, and they got to see most of the US, but living on the road 24/7 was tough. With no smartphones or streaming services back then, their entertainment was limited to DVDs, books, and talking on the CB radio. But this helped them connect with other truckers, some of whom were really cool, others were a little on the creepy side. They both had CB handles for safety. The ex was Ninja Dwarf, and the Redditor, being young and from Alaska, went by Northern Exposure. Among the truckers they chatted with, there was a guy named Maniac. His voice alone gave them the creeps. It was like something straight out of a horror movie. One day, Maniac asked to tag along with them to Arkansas. He always seemed to be driving the same route, but never actually crossed paths with them. He described his truck, a black Peterbilt with a cattle guard and brow, but they never had actually seen it. Once they agreed to meet in Nevada, but Maniac never showed up. This happened a few times. Things took a dark turn though when they heard about lot lizards, aka truck stop SEX workers, who were being found dead in several states. These were just gruesome stories to the Reddit user at first, until they witnessed a horrifying scene at a truck stop. A woman had been tied to a trailer and ripped apart when the driver unknowingly pulled out. Months after this, they were pulled into a truck stop in New Orleans when they heard a familiar voice crackling over the CB. It was Maniac, and he was close. Not only that, but he was making threats and even hinting at his involvement in the killings. And finally, for the first time, they saw it, a black Peterbilt. It was Maniac's truck, and as he rolled by, he shot them a creepy grin as he spoke into his mic. Be safe out there, Ninja Dwarf and Northern Exposure. A common sight amongst truck drivers driving late at night and early into the morning are shadow figures, sometimes referred to as silent specters. Late at night, when the world is mostly asleep, truckers have reported seeing strange shadowy figures at truck stops. The figures are often seen wandering around the parking lots or restrooms. One story tells of a trucker driving down I-77 near Charlotte, North Carolina. He saw what looked like a homeless man standing by the on-ramp. And as he got closer, he noticed that there was something off. The person had matte black skin and no features at all. He pulled over to take another look, but when he turned around, the figure was gone. Now, these shadow figures are a pretty common tale amongst truckers. Some think they're just tricks of the mind, especially when driving tired late at night, a sign that you probably need to pull over and get some sleep. But others believe they might be ghosts or something else entirely, dark omens or spirits of people who died in horrible accidents, forever trapped on the lonely roads where they died. This terrifying tale comes to us from Reddit user Mr. Tumnus_, who writes, in 2017, on one of my routes, I had stopped at Love's gas station in Emerson, Georgia, maybe 20 minutes outside Atlanta. I'd been stopped for about an hour, just resting and eating some fast food, when a woman came knocking on my door. I opened it, and she looked homeless and pretty old, in her 50s or 60s. I asked her if I could help her, and she was like, I think we can help each other. And I said, how so? And she proceeds to proposition me paying for you know what, which I declined and sent her on her way. I continue to rest and eat and play on my phone for another 30 minutes when someone comes to my door and opens it and attempts to rob me in a scream mask. It was obviously the old lady from before. I push her away and lock my door and crank it up. I assumed she ran off somewhere because I could no longer see her. After the truck was ready, I pulled off and started driving. Soon cars next to me started trying to get my attention, honking and pointing to the back end of my truck. I pull over, and when I come to a stop, I see someone jump and start running. It was the same lady. This crazy woman was hanging onto the back of my truck as I was driving. It was just a really odd experience. The Flying J truck stop in Kingman, Arizona is said to be haunted by the spirit of a young boy. This truck stop is said to be haunted by the ghost of a young boy who tragically died in a fire there in the 70s. Late at night, visitors pulling in during a long drive on the road will often have some unsettling experiences. Some truckers have seen the apparition of a young boy playing near the gas pumps, which is already a bit of an eerie sight on an empty road at 3 a.m. in the morning anyway, but it gets even creepier when the figure disappears into thin air. Others have heard the sound of young laughter echoing through the empty lot. The truck stop staff have their own tales, with several reporting the feeling of a small hand brushing against theirs or the faint sound of footsteps running down the aisles. The Pilots Travel Center in Lebanon, Tennessee also has an eerie reputation. This one is said to be haunted by the ghost of a truck driver who was killed there in the late 80s. He's notorious for his pleas for help. Late at night or in the wee hours of the morning when the truck stop is quiet, some people have reported seeing the ghostly figure of a man wandering the parking lot. His apparition often appears near the spot where he was violently beaten to death. Truckers will also say they've heard faint cries for help echoing through the lot, only there's never anyone there but the staff, who say the phantom cries are a common occurrence. And they have other creepy stories of their own, like the sounds of footsteps following close behind them, only to turn around to find that no one's there. One chilling story involves a trucker who was taking a late night shower. He suddenly heard desperate banging on the door and a man's voice pleading for help. When he opened the door, lo and behold, the hallway was empty. Next, we head to Texas with Love's Truck Stop in Shamrock. For years, truckers have shared stories about the odd things they've experienced at the place, which is said to be haunted by the ghost of a young woman who was killed there 30-odd years ago. It seems like she may not have left either. The staff have felt a cold, unseen hand brush against them, sending chills down their spines. Some have heard soft cries or whispers coming from empty rooms. This next account comes from a deleted Reddit user who posted about a story her boyfriend told her. It goes as follows. My boyfriend is a truck driver who routinely does midnight runs. He told me that one night he was getting ready to park in a lot next to a truck stop. He said it looked like there were no lights, no cars, no sign of anyone, but he said screw it. He was tired. He woke up the next morning, parked on the side of the road with 3 highway patrol vehicles behind him. He was about 15 miles away from the truck stop he parked at. Thing is, he was sleeping in his camper the whole night. He has no idea how he got on the side of the road, and logic says someone tried stealing the truck and succeeded, and the police convinced him of this happening as they saw a man in a black jumpsuit running away from his truck into a nearby field. Even then, he still feels uneasy about the whole situation. Apparently, the doors were still locked from the inside, and there was no real sign of anyone having tried to break in. The Tri-County truck stop off Route 66 in Villa Ridge, Missouri. This is another truck stop that's now closed, but just because it's abandoned doesn't necessarily mean it's empty. The building has been notorious for its paranormal activity. Many believe it's inhabited by ghosts. Paranormal investigators from the Sci-Fi Channel visited the site and declared it haunted. Some pretty freaky stuff happened during their investigation. They spotted an apparition in the bathroom wearing a red flannel shirt. He disappeared almost as soon as he was spotted. One team member watched as a door swung open on its own after they had shut it. Investigators from Missouri's Paranormal Task Force investigated the place in 2006 and had a light bulb hurled at them, along with a coffee pot. Locals have their own stories. You'll have the typical shadowy figures flitting past the windows, and others have spotted that man in the red flannel shirt, who's said to be a former trucker who died at the stop.
As off at number 10, we have Fengdu City. Nestled on the banks of the Yangtze River, Fengdu Ghost City's spooky past dates back over 2,000 years, and the legend associated with it is bone-chilling to say the least. As the story goes, thousands of years ago, two Eastern Han Dynasty imperial officials named Ying Changsheng and Wang Fangpin came to the city to practice Taoist rituals that eventually made them immortal. Combining their surnames produced the phrase Ying Wang, which means king of hell, and they were said to drag all the local villagers into the underworld. Fast forward to today, and the area is surrounded by temples and shrines dedicated to the underworld, and visitors who dare enter can journey through the dark paintings and sculptures lining the temple walls, each depicting scenes of villagers being tormented for their sins. But even scarier is that Fengdu is home to 3 sites that ghosts must visit before they can visit the underworld: Nothing to be Done Bridge, Ghost Torturing Pass, and Tianzi Palace. It's said ghosts must take tests at each place, and that those who will pass go to heaven, and those who fail will go to hell. Moving on to number 9, Yongshan Fandian Hotel. It wouldn't be the first creepy and haunted hotel, and it most certainly won't be the last. This 220-room hotel, located in the city Shengda, north of Beijing, overlooks the Yangtze River, and it was supposedly built on land that was once a part of the Qing dynasty's royal gardens. Said to be haunted by the Empress Siqi, many guests and hotel staff alike have reported seeing her ghostly apparition float through the halls. But be careful, she is not always friendly. While some accounts merely mention that she likes to appear on the 8th floor and look at her old gardens, some of the more terrifying encounters claim her spirit will be sitting eerily in the shadows of random hotel rooms, and if you look directly at her, she will lunge right at you as if she's about to attack, right before turning into mist and disappearing. And then she does it all over again. Moving on to number 8, the Forbidden City. Located in Beijing, the Forbidden City was built in the early 15th century during the Ming and Qing dynasties under the reign of the Emperor Yongle, who was infamous for his wickedness. For example, on one occasion, he tried to suppress a scandal by slaughtering 2,800 people. But really, execution of any kind was not uncommon, and anyone who went against the emperor's rule was easily removed. In the following few thousand years, the Forbidden City remained an imperial palace and became the site of many deaths, homicides, assassinations, and executions. So really, it's no wonder that the place is haunted. In fact, ever since it was opened to the public in the 1940s, people have reported seeing ghostly apparitions. Some claim to have seen the ghosts of eunuchs, brides, and soldiers, while others have heard women talking and laughing, a woman in white crying, or even heard eerie music playing out of nowhere. But scariest of all are the sightings from 1995. One of the guards encountered a woman in black, whom he initially took to be a trespasser. But when the woman turned to speak to him, he saw she had no face. I would not be returning to that job if it were me. Moving on to number 7, Huguang Wiguan. In 1807, a wealthy philanthropist had the Huguang Wiguan Guild Hall constructed in Beijing with only the best of intentions to provide a traditional gathering place for the community as well as shelter to those who needed it. But little did he know that the chosen site was partially on top of an ancient graveyard, and the deceased apparently didn't appreciate the disturbance of their final resting place. And ever since, the building, which now operates as an opera house and museum, is said to be haunted. According to one story, in the early 1900s, the owners hired a housekeeper who had been severely disfigured by leprosy, and apparently the man's appearance was thought to repel the ghosts, so they stayed dormant for the time he worked there. But after he left, the ghosts returned. Ever since, people have heard screaming and seen strange sights at all hours of the day, and legend has it that anyone who tries to throw a stone on the property will be haunted and followed by scolding ghosts for as long as they remain.
Number 5. Princess Theater. In the late 1880s, a local opera singer named Fred Baker, seeing failure in his performances, renamed himself as Federici and posed as a European singer. After this, people started flocking to theaters to hear this exotic singer. Now in March 1888, while he was completing a show at the Princess Theater, Federici hit a high note as he was descending on the stage on a platform. It was at this time that he had a heart attack and died on the spot. His death was witnessed by a stagehand. When the other actors found out about his abrupt death, they were shocked, as they swore he had been on stage with them after the final curtain to bask in applause sometime after he had already died. Since then, it's rumored that the theater is haunted by his ghost, and there have been numerous reported sightings of Federici's ghost over the years by performers and staff. Now, rather than trying to expel him from the theater, it was tradition to reserve him a seat in the theater's third row so he can watch the performances amongst the audience. Number 4. National Film and Sound Archive. Before it was the National Film and Sound Archive, this building was the Australian Institute of Anatomy, where it housed hundreds of human skeletons and body parts and animal specimens, including Farlap's heart, Ned Kelly's skull, and a mummy from Papua New Guinea. Staff in recent years have witnessed objects moving by themselves and weird noises coming from recording booths, which once served as dissection labs. The foyer of the building is lined with 9 busts of famous Australians. Now, when these Australians will pop out as an apparition from time to time, it's said that people will be out in the building in the late afternoon and they see an outline of an elderly man, dressed well, and he comes out of the wall near where his ashes are. Now, he doesn't move much and then suddenly sucks back into where the ashes are behind the wall. Number 3. Fremantle Prison. Originally known as the Convict Establishment, the Fremantle Prison was built by convicts between 1852 and 1859 using limestone quarried on site. During its period of operation, the prison housed the majority of the state's thieves and rogues, as well as people who ended others' lives, and during both world wars, it was used by the Australian Army as a military prison for prisoners of war. In its time as a jail, 44 people were executed at its gallows. Now, just one of them was a woman, Martha Rendell. Martha was convicted of ending the lives of 3 of her offspring, and legend has it that her face occasionally appears in the chapel window. Now, the sound of rattling keys, disembodied footsteps, and voices haunt the building as well, as any visitors who take pictures with the gallows tend to appear headless when they look at it after. Now, cameras tend to fail, there are orbs and strange light anomalies, flying bin lids, and funny smells. Several guards claim to have seen the apparition of a man in black, and one of them even fainted when he laid eyes on the figure. Now, no one knows who he is or why he's there, and that is just terrifying. Number 2. Central Railway Station. While tens of thousands of commuters may pass through Central Station as they make their way to work every day, deep beneath the platforms is a hidden world. Abandoned tunnels snake underground and have sat unused for decades. Stripped bare but largely still intact, platforms 26 and 27 were built in the 1970s on the site of the old Devonshire Street Cemetery. The bodies laying in the graveyard were reburied across the city decades before the station was built, but workers recently inspecting the unused platform have reported some eerie experiences. Sydney train officials have reported reported hearing voices echoing against the walls, and even the sounds of children playing. Director of Operations with Sydney Trains Tony Eade also claims to have heard the sound of children's voices on a visit to station's never-used tunnels. He previously said workers down here said they would hear kids playing and, thinking they were vandals, would go and investigate. On one occasion, I was down here with a radio crew and we all heard children playing. Take that as you wish, but we all heard it. And coming in at number 1 is Arundel Mental Hospital. Arundel Mental Hospital was an Australian psychiatric hospital where construction began in 1864 and was opened for patients in 1867. Now, with a building this old and with walls that have seen so many horrors, it is not a shock that this place is haunted. It was finally closed as an asylum in 1993, and at its height, Arundel had 1,000 patients and is a large complex with up to 70 interesting historic abandoned buildings. While reports exist of apparitions, phantom sounds, visitors experiencing nausea, fainting, and pain, some ghosts from Arundel's past have made themselves known to those who are alive today. Now, J Ward is one of the most haunted places, as visitors report feeling ill and suddenly afraid. Others slip into a trance, only released from it when they exit the building. Some people have even been bitten or pushed while walking through J Ward, and the ward is also said to be haunted by 3 prisoners who were hanged and buried on the property. They are said to be restless because they weren't given a proper burial, and their graves are only marked with 3 scratches on the prison wall. Apparitions have also been seen in the women's ward donning old-time nurses' uniforms and disappearing into stone walls.
Today we have Pendle Hill, which was the location of some witch trials. Legend says that the spirits of the accused witches still roam these woods, an unseen presence that chills the spine of those who dare to tread their paths. As the veil thins on Halloween night, paranormal enthusiasts and brave souls flock to this eerie locale, eager to encounter these ghostly entities. Amidst the whispering trees and under the hill's watchful gaze, visitors recount eerie experiences. Ghostly whispers that float on the breeze, fleeting shadows that flit through the trees, I didn't even mean to rhyme there, and an unnerving chill that descends without warning, as if the spirits themselves are brushing by. It's stories like these that make this place such a hot spot for people to visit, all yearning for a glimpse into the other side. But Pendle Hill keeps its secrets close. This is just one of those places where the horrific history attracts curious minds to see what exactly is hiding here. Next up on our list, we have the Smolensk Forest. This forest's dark story is one that starts off during one of the darkest parts of history, in 1943 at the height of the Second World War. At this time, German troops invaded this forest and made the disturbing discovery of a mass grave containing Polish soldiers who had their lives taken. And this was not just a few, not that that would necessarily make it better, but we are talking about thousands of people. 20,000 actually, by some estimates. In the end, it was determined that these people were casualties of an order made by Joseph Stalin. This is certainly enough to make this a creepy place, but of course, the story doesn't end there. In more recent history, there was a plane crash in the forest that happened in 2010, in which 96 people lost their lives. All in all, it's probably just good to stay away from this one, just in case. Doesn't sound like good things are happening there. Next up on our list today, we have the Tsavo East National Park, which is nestled in the vast wilderness of Kenya. This place is a sanctuary of nature's splendor, yet it harbors a chilling legacy that whispers through the savannah. Beyond its renowned biodiversity, the park is etched in infamy for the harrowing episodes at the Tsavo River, where, in 1898, a pair of man-eating lions unleashed a reign of terror upon the laborers constructing the Uganda Railway. I know, you probably weren't expecting man-eating lions, but here we are. These predators, known as the Ghost and the Darkness, became the stuff of legend, not just for their very unnerving predation, but also for the spectral tales that followed. The spirits of those who fell prey to the lions are said to linger, imbuing the landscape with an aura of mystery and foreboding, and travelers and locals recount an inexplicable sinister ambiance around the river, marked by unaccountable whispers in the wind and the faint echoes of distant roars at night. I can't think of anything more terrifying. As darkness falls over Savo, the line between the natural and the supernatural blurs, with some asserting that the restless souls of the past still roam the park, perhaps still entwined in the tragic narrative of the man-eating lions. Next up on our list today we have the Black Forest, which is found in the heart of southwestern Germany. Here there is the legend of a headless horseman that looms large, a spectral figure said to ride through the forest's darkest corners, with legends whispering of eerie encounters on moonless nights. Similarly, whispers of werewolves and witches pervade the local lore. There's stories entwined with the ancient trees and hidden glens that define this mysterious landscape. Local folklore tells of witches who gather beneath the moonlit sky, their silhouettes casting sinister shadows against the flickering flames of their ritual fires. Meanwhile, tales of werewolves lurking in the underbrush stoke the fires of the imagination, suggesting a transformational bond between the forest and these mythical creatures. These legends, passed down through generations, speak to the deep connection between this forest and the supernatural, a relationship born from the very essence of the Black Forest's primeval beauty and inscrutable depths. Amidst the backdrop of mystery and lore, the forest retains its timeless allure, inviting the brave and the curious to explore its hidden secrets and perhaps even encounter a legend come to life. If it's a moonless night, you're encountering a headless horseman. If it's a full moon, you're getting werewolves. And I guess if there's just any other moon, you're getting witches. What more could you want, truly? Holy shit. Alright, next up on our list today we have Clapham Wood. This forest is located within the serene landscape of West Sussex, and it is shrouded in an atmosphere that is thick with mystery. It has become infamous for its unsettling calm, which is interrupted by a sequence of bizarre disappearances and chilling encounters. Witnesses report eerie lights piercing the night sky, attributing them to UFOs that seem drawn to this particular place, as if tethered by an unseen force. The wood's uncanny reputation is further fueled by whispers of occult rituals performed under its canopy of ancient trees. It is rumored that secret societies have chosen this secluded forest as their unhallowed ground, conducting rites that disturb the very essence of nature. The palpable sense of unease in Clapham Wood is only heightened by the unexplained deaths that have occurred in its depths. Among the most compelling tales is that of a series of UFO sightings in the 1960s and 1970s, where witnesses described encountering glowing orbs and strange metallic crafts that seemed to defy the laws of physics. These events have led some to speculate about vortexes or portals within the wood, connecting our world to realms beyond our understanding. Next up on our list today we have Brocéliande Forest, and this legendary forest is located in Brittany, France, and it is steeped in Arthurian legend and is said to be the home of the mythical wizard Merlin. This forest isn't steeped in legends of creepy ghosts coming back to haunt with a vengeance, but instead is a place full of legends that coincide with important moments in history. This forest is the one said to be of the King Arthur legend, as well as the home to the tomb of Merlin, which I mentioned before. This is already very interesting, but what's creepier is the fact that the Valley of No Return is located here, and this is said to be the site where the sorceress Morgan Le Fay, King Arthur's half-sister, imprisoned young unfaithful men. If this doesn't seem like enough already, in more recent history, this site was the location of a terrible fire in 1990 that completely ripped through the forest. All in all, this forest maybe isn't the most terrifying in terms of ghouls and goblins and ghostly lions, but it is definitely full of some pretty creepy history. Moving on down our list, we have Dow Hill. Dow Hill harbors a chilling narrative that transcends the ordinary. These woods are rumored to be the restless haunt of souls who met their untimely demise within this wilderness, their spirits anchored to the place of their final anguish. Adjacent to this eerie forest stands the Victoria Boys High School, an institution as steeped in lore as it is in academia. As night comes, the deserted hallways of the school are said to resonate with inexplicable footsteps, suggesting the presence of unseen visitors from beyond the veil. This phenomenon has captured the imagination and the trepidation of many, lending a spectral aura to the school school's historic walls. Local lore is rife with tales of encounters with these spectral entities, some claiming to feel an overwhelming sense of foreboding or to hear anguish whispers. These stories are not just figments of the imagination, but are ingrained in the cultural fabric of the area, passed down through generations, imbuing Dow Hill with a profound sense of mystery and a mark of the paranormal. Moving on down today, we have Freetown Fall River State Forest, which is nestled in the heart of Massachusetts. This verdant expanse forms a critical piece of the notorious Bridgewater Triangle, a hotspot that seems to magnetically attract the bizarre and the unexplained. Similar to the Bermuda Triangle, I really don't know what it is with all these triangles and their strange happenings. Just stay out of the triangles, alright? Within its shadowy bounds, the forest brims with tales that blur the line between reality and the supernatural. Imagine wandering through these woods only to encounter a UFO silently gliding overhead, or to feel the watchful eyes of unseen entities as whispers of ancient poltergeists dance through the trees. Here, legends of cryptid creatures such as colossal serpents and majestic thunderbirds are not just stories, they are chapters in the forest's mysterious lore. And then there's the whispered narratives of cult gatherings and eerie confrontations that might just make the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. At the end of the day, it is very clear that Freetown Fall River State Forest isn't just a collection of trees and trails, but instead a hotspot for the creepy and the unexplained. Next up today, we have Lichen Way, which is located in Turkey. It's a little bit less of a forest in the traditional way and more of a long-distance footpath. This place is known for its beautiful scenery, but behind the facade is something slightly more sinister. Through about 500 kilometers of rugged coastline, this footpath takes the journeyer through some ancient ruins and burial grounds, and this is where the haunting really gets started. Hikers in the area have reported seeing apparitions around these areas, as well as just feeling a general sense of dread. One of the main places that people have reported these strange feelings is by Kayakoi, which is a ghost village that was left abandoned when their Greek inhabitants left Turkey. There's always something very unsettling about a place that is just left completely abandoned. But when coupled with ghostly sightings, it's safe to say that while absolutely beautiful, this place is best visited with caution. And finally, today to end off our list, we have Griffith Park, tucked away in the bustling city of Los Angeles, California. This place is one of North America's vast urban parks, and it harbors a myriad of secrets within its expansive bounds. Chief among them is the chilling tale of Don Antonio Felice. In the 19th century, it is said that Felice, a prominent landowner, was wronged as death approached and uttered a curse upon his vast estate. This malevolent legacy seems to have seeped into the very soil of Griffith Park, manifesting through eerie encounters and, of course, ghost sightings. Visitors whisper of glimpses of Don Antonio's forlorn spirit wandering the park, his ethereal presence a stark reminder of the park's somber past. Alongside him, other phantoms and inexplicable occurrences contribute to the park's haunted reputation, from spectral figures glimpsed in the twilight to inexplicable sounds disturbing the night's peace. It's safe to say that Griffith Park is full of haunting lore.
Number 5, the Omni Grove Park Inn. You can find this lovely historic hotel in Asheville, North Carolina. For years, however, guests and staff alike have reported feeling the presence of a spirit simply known as the Pink Lady. The Pink Lady was a former guest at the hotel who unfortunately never left. She's often described simply as a pinkish, smoky haze, but will sometimes take on the form of a young woman in a pink ball gown. The story goes that the woman was the mistress of a married man and was staying in room 545, the room she's said to still haunt to this very day. She met her end falling from the 5th floor balcony to the 3rd. In some stories she was thrown, in others she jumped herself, but the Pink Lady sounds like a pretty fun ghost, to be honest. Some report their room being rearranged at night, lights turning on and off by themselves, and some have even woken up in the middle of the night with their feet being tickled. Never heard of a ghost doing that before, but I appreciate the creativity. Next up is the Emily Morgan Hotel in San Antonio, Texas. It's pretty obvious why this hotel is so supposedly haunted. From 1924 to 1976, the building was a hospital, complete with a morgue and crematorium. It didn't become a hotel hotel until 1984. Staff and guests have reported all sorts of strange phenomena going on here. You have your more standard ghost stuff, of course. Maids will clean a room only to come out of the bathroom to see pillows tossed onto the floor, doors opening and closing on their own. I'm sure people hear things. Sometimes the elevators will randomly stop at various floors for no reason. Some guests have said they've heard the phone in their room ring and then they've gone to pick it up. There's no one on the other end of the line. One story goes that a guest had returned to her room after dinner to find that her bathtub had been filled with blue water. Now that could be an outright lie, or a staff member just went into her room and had a bath while she was out. But there are a lot of other strange things that go on here. The creepiest reports are those related to the lingering spirits who met their end as hospital patients. Some claim to hear the sound of a hospital cart being wheeled down the hallway. The smell of antiseptic often wafts throughout the 14th floor, especially. There are also shadowy figures said to move across the walls with no visible source. Number 3, the Ancient Ram Inn. Now, unfortunately, you can't actually stay in this place now. The owner uses it as their home. Man, I'd love to get a room here. The place was built all the way back in 1145. That probably isn't super exciting for the Europeans in the audience or like anyone really outside of North America, but I don't think I've ever stepped foot in a place that old. Anyway, you can only imagine how much history surrounds this building. This place was actually built on the grounds of a 5,000-year-old pagan burial site. Reports of strange occurrences, including ghostly apparitions and disembodied voices, have been reported, and as to what spirit or spirits these voices belong to, one of the most famous legends involves a witch who was supposedly burned at the stake on the property at some point in the 1500s. There are also legends of a number of tragic events, such as human sacrifices that are said to have taken place within its walls. And number 2, we have, of course, the Cecil Hotel. The Cecil Hotel in downtown Los Angeles has a notorious history marked by a series of incredibly grim events. It's become quite infamous for its association with criminal activity and unsettling paranormal occurrences. The 1940s saw the Cecil being linked to several unalivings, leading to its pretty blunt nickname. The hotel was also the temporary residence of the infamous Richard Ramirez during his horrific spree. One of the most well-known incidents in modern times was, of course, the case of Elisa Lam in 2013. Her mysterious death and that eerie elevator surveillance footage captured attention from everyone across the internet. And for all these reasons and more, many have claimed the building to be incredibly haunted. Reports of strange noises and ghostly sightings have been being claimed for decades. And lastly, we have the Langham Hotel in London, England, said to be one of the most haunted hotels in the country. The hotel was built in 1865, so a lot of guests have stayed at this place over the years, some of which have never left. There are said to be 5 primary ghosts that haunt this building. Some people apparently hear a baby crying at night. Well, I mean, I guess babies might stay at the hotel, but if it's just a disembodied baby voice, that's creepy. One primary ghost is that of a German prince who fell from his upper story window. Staff have reported seeing his ghostly figure moving through walls. His presence is also always accompanied by a drop in temperature. Room 333 is supposedly the most haunted room. One man, a BBC newscaster, woke up to see the ghostly figure of a man in Victoria-era evening wear. The figure hovered in the air. It had no legs. Classic ghost kind of look. The figure started floating towards the man with its arms out, as if it was going to grab him. In 2014, several English national team cricket players left the hotel in the middle of the night because of supposed paranormal activity going on in their rooms. They reported sudden, unexplained heat, their bathroom taps turned on by themselves, and they just had this uneasy feeling of a strange presence lurking in their rooms. Starting off this list with 300 Kim Ma Street in Hanoi, Vietnam. This compound has sat abandoned for over 30 years, and it's said to be one of the most haunted houses in the entire city. There are all kinds of tales surrounding the place. People have claimed to see objects move on their own, semi-translucent or shadowy figures have been seen lurking about, and in the dead of night, ghostly screams are often heard from within the walls. This picture here has made the rounds homes for a while. As you can see, there's a man standing in front of the gate of the property, and in the background, you can clearly see what looks to be a ghostly figure in a white robe lurking behind him. Now, is this actually just a person who is very much alive, roaming through the abandoned property in a long white robe? At night, possibly, but there could also be a ghost afoot. Number 9, the Yongdok House in South Korea. If you ever find yourself in South Korea and feel like taking a spooky trip, you can visit this abandoned house. It's about a 3-hour high-speed train ride from Seoul, but you just might meet a ghost or 10, so maybe it's worth it for you. Plus, apparently you can just roam around for free. The Yongdok House is the final resting place of hundreds of soldiers. Around 700 of them died on this land during the Korean War, and of course their spirits are still said to haunt the property. As it turns out, the soldiers are all buried there. The home was built on a mass grave. Every owner who lived in the house experienced terrible misfortune. Not only did they encounter these tortured spirits, but they each met untimely deaths. Word got out about how seemingly cursed this home was, and nobody wanted to live there. It was eventually abandoned at some point in the 80s. Next up, we have the Edmonton Haunted House. Now, I'm not clear as to the name of the owner of this house or the exact location, only that it is or was in Edmonton. This is an old story dating back to 1909. The owner would rent the house out, but they had a hard time securing regular tenants, as each person who stayed there would rush out of the home, oftentimes in well under a month. An article at the time is quoted as saying, "From time to time, parties of different nationalities have approached the owner of the house and rented it, sometimes for a year, other times only for a few months. But generally, at the expiration of a few hours, they disappeared, bag and baggage, without even calling up the owner for a refund of the monies paid. The owner and his agent unaware of their departure until the next month's rent was due." Tenants would experience horrific paranormal activity in the home, with one story going that a tenant had locked himself in his room with furniture pressed up against the door, and yet somehow the door opened on its own, and from the dark hallway beyond, he heard a terrible disembodied groaning sound. Another story goes that an Asian businessman had rented out the home with 4 of his workers. They were planning to operate a laundry business from the home. They didn't even make it through the first night and fled from the home in the middle of the night, returning in the morning to collect their belongings. And at number 7, we have the Whaley House. Thomas Whaley began constructing this beautiful San Diego home in 1856, having proclaimed, "My new house, when completed, will be the handsomest, most comfortable and convenient place in town, or within 150 miles of here." It sounds like something Donald Trump would say. "My house is going to be the best place. We're 150 miles, but it's most comfortable. Everyone's gonna love it. It's gonna be the talk of the town." Anyway, for a long time, it actually was. It wasn't just the Whaley family home. It became the focal point of the entire town. There was a theater, a general store. It was the county courthouse. The San Diego County government rented out a portion of the home for its offices and records. There was a lot going on at this place, but the party started to end when the family began experiencing paranormal activity in the home. They would hear heavy footsteps making their way throughout the hallways at night, ghostly moans coming from throughout the house. They believed it was the spirit of a man named James Yankee Jim Robinson, who had been hanged on the property after stealing a boat. Harsh time to live. Steal a boat, you deserve death, sir. Not long after these paranormal experiences began, one of the daughters, Violet, took her own life, and the Whaleys ended up leaving the home, building a new one downtown. Number 6, the Borley Rectory. Built in 1862 in Essex, this home was once known as the most haunted house in England. It served as a residence for the Reverend Henry Dawson Ellis Bull and his family. Reports of strange occurrences, including unexplained footsteps, mysterious lights, eerie sounds, it began being reported around 1900 when 4 of Henry's daughters claimed to have seen a ghostly nun in the yard. And instead of going inside, like any rational person would do in that situation, they decided to run over and try to talk with her, but the nuns started to vanish the closer they got, apparently. And the rectory gained widespread attention when paranormal investigator Harry Price conducted an investigation there in 1929. At this time, there was a different family living in the home who had also started experiencing paranormal activity, like servant bells ringing even though they had all been disconnected. Price's research led to claims of the Borley nun, a phantom coach, and other ghostly apparitions said to haunt the property. His findings were published in his book, The Most Haunted House in England, further fueling the rectory's haunted reputation, and the stories surrounding the Borley Rectory varied, with tales of tragic events such as a phantom nun and a supposed love affair ending in a unaliving. These stories added to the intrigue and really fed to this belief that this place was just a hotbed of paranormal activity. Number 5, The Figure. This next story was posted to Reddit by user u/KimJongFunk. It goes like this. When I was in elementary school, I shared a queen-size bed with my older sister and our family dog, a mutt that looked like a short-haired lassie. We'd sleep on the foot of our bed every night. When I was about 6 years old, I woke up one night around midnight and saw a dark figure standing at the foot of the bed. The figure was entirely in black without any eyes or a face. I tried to wake up my sister, but she rolled over to go back to sleep. My sister must have accidentally kicked the dog, because the dog woke up and raised her head and started growling at the figure at the foot of the bed. The growling then woke up my sister, and she saw the figure and started screaming. When my parents came into the room and turned the light on, nothing was there. To this day, both my sister and I are adamant that we saw a ghost or other demon on our room. We know we weren't crazy either because the dog saw it too. Preble County has a number of reportedly haunted hotspots, including Brawbaker Bridge. Brubaker Bridge was built in 1887 over a creek. The bridge became rather infamous after a tragic accident in the 30s. A group of young folks coming back from a party crashed their car inside the covered bridge. The impact was so severe that their bodies were flung from the vehicle in pieces. One young man was initially thought missing entirely, but was later found to have been ejected so far from the car that it landed in the brush, and his body was completely overlooked and was eventually lost to the elements. Since then, people crossing the bridge have reported strange occurrences like car engines mysteriously dying and a tapping sound on car windows, which some believe is the young man still trying to be found.
Next on our list is the Mansfield Reformatory, also known as the Ohio State Reformatory, and the inspiration behind Shawshank Redemption. It was also temporarily home to country music singer David Allen Cole, Confederate Army General John Hunt Morgan, mobster George Bugs Moran, and gangster aides Charlie Mackley and Harry Piper Point. During the prison's years of operation, over 200 people died on the grounds, including guards who were killed during a prison escape. Illnesses ran rampant throughout the institute. Riots often broke out, and one inmate even set themselves on fire. At one point, 120 inmates were jammed into 12 solitary confinement cells and kept without food and water for days, which caused many prisoners to go mad, kill and kill one another. And of course, as it so often goes, many of those who died in the prison are believed to have never left. Visitors to the former penitentiary have reported being pushed and even punched by unseen forces. These ghosts are mad. People have also felt inexplicable chills and have heard cell doors slam, and have also seen dark apparitions wandering around the halls. If you like haunted places, this might be a great place to go, but maybe wear some protective padding.
Buckeye Jake's Eatery and Bar sounds like a place with some good grub. It must be good though, because the place is still open despite the fact that some staff have run screaming out of the place, never to return. To say it's haunted would be an understatement. What doesn't go on at this place? People will report items flying off the shelves, black shadowy figures roaming through the halls after the place has been closed up for the night, doors opening by themselves, chairs and tables have fallen over seemingly on their own. The sound system will often switch channels out of nowhere. There's even the spectral figure of a woman in a white gown who's known to staff as Helen.
Well, considering the fact that the chairs are moving, we know that James will not be going there. If you guys have been with this channel for a while, you probably know James has a completely rational fear of chairs. Next up, the Ridges, aka Athens Lunatic Asylum. I'm sorry for roasting you so badly. Alright you guys, the asylum was built in Athens, Ohio in 1868, and the first patient to be admitted was a young woman suffering from epilepsy. However, her parents believed that she was possessed by a demon. Of course, it was the 1800s. The institution went on to house men and women with a variety of mental illnesses, as well as war veterans, rule breakers, the homeless, the elderly, and even the criminally insane. I guess it was a kind of hospital slash prison slash municipal lawsuit waiting to happen. Treatments at the hospital often included lobotomies, which either led to death or patients ending up with seizures, hemorrhages, and internal bleeding, causing them to live out the rest of their days as a shell of their former selves. During the hospital's years of operation, 700 women and 959 men died while receiving treatment in the dangerously overcrowded and asbestos-infested facility. One of the most famous deaths that took place on the grounds was that of a 50-year-old female patient who had gone missing for 6 weeks only to be found in an unused room of the asylum. She had taken off her clothes, folded them neatly, and then laid down on the floor to die. It's unclear whether or not foul play was involved, although it does seem kind of strange. Her body left a stain on the floor that is still visible after all of these years, and it is said that that woman, along with many other patients who died on the grounds, continue to roam and haunt the property to this day.
Here's something you don't hear about every day. A haunted mall. Only in Ohio, right? Sandusky Mall in Erie County has its perfect name. It has its fair share of ghostly urban legends and ghost stories. One story goes that a police officer noticed a mysterious red light at the mall's main entrance one night around 1:30 a.m. while he finished up some paperwork in his squad car, and as he approached the light, it had just vanished. He thought it could have been mall security, but it turned out they were all the way on the other side of the building. An employee at Kaufman's department store reported feeling an unexpected cold presence and actually fell over when she turned around to see what it was. She got this gust of cold air and nobody was actually there. Even the American Eagle at this mall is haunted. Like, how many places in the world are you gonna find a haunted American Eagle? One of the most frequently reported ghostly sightings at the mall is the woman in the red dress. Two of the most well-known accounts are from an overnight security guard and a visitor of the mall. The overnight guard had been on patrol when he mistook her for a real person and called the police before this woman in the dress just vanished into thin air. There have also been reports of a headless hitchhiker and a driverless car seen outside the mall. Never have I wanted to go to a mall so badly.
Next on our list today we have Franklin Castle, located in Cleveland, Ohio. The castle was originally inhabited by the Tideman family. Prior to building Franklin Castle, Haynes Tideman and his wife lived in a different house on the same property, but tragedy struck and one by one the couple watched as almost all of their sons and daughters died. After the tragic losses, the Tidemans decided to tear down their previous home and build the Franklin Castle in its place, but it seems that whatever was haunting the family was unfazed by the change of scenery. Mrs. Tideman died in 1890, and after that the Tidemans' remaining sons and daughters lost their lives as well. After Haynes Tideman passed, it is rumored that the castle's many hidden passages became a meeting place for local members of a foreign hate group. Not only that, but apparently during one of those meetings a killing spree broke out. The house, which some believe to be the most haunted house in all of Ohio, is now open to the public, and visitors to the castle who have slept in the rooms of the deceased report having felt the presence of the dead, as well as having heard strange noises throughout the home. If you do decide to visit, I think it's like a one-night stay. It's pretty creepy. If you have visited, let me know all about it.
Next up, we have Fudge Road in Gratis. How could a place named Fudge Road possibly be evil? Well, it turns out the place is just teeming with ghoulies. You got the spirits of two men who died on the road during an illicit substance bust. There have also been sightings of a white humanoid beast reported in the area. The bridge on Fudge Road, known locally as Crybaby Bridge, has multiple ghosts. Legend has it that a mother in the 1800s threw her son off the bridge, and his spirit is still said to haunt the area, along with the spirit of a woman who hanged herself from the bridge after losing her infant. It's said that if you park your car there, you shut it off, roll down the window, and say "Mama" 3 times, you might hear the ghostly cries of one of those little ghosts. And finally, you have the story of a truck driver who died after driving off the bridge, and he haunts the place, of course, because no one in Ohio just dies and stays dead, apparently.
Next up, we've got Helltown, located in the Boston Township of Summit County in Ohio. Not only is it a ghost town, but it's a ghosts town. Ghosts Town. It was founded in 1806, but in 1974, President Ford ordered the town to be vacated so that the area could be used as a national park. Or so he said. People were forced out of their homes until the entire township was abandoned. Originally, the homes were supposed to be demolished and removed, and the land brought back to its natural state, but neither of those things ever happened. Instead, the town sat abandoned and destitute, begging the question of why its residents were forcibly removed in the first place. Many believe that there was a chemical spill in the area and that the government's removal of the town's residents was actually a cover-up, but of course there's no way to be sure. What we do know is that after the townspeople left, the area became the perfect setting for satanic worship. The grounds are now said to be cursed by the devil, thus earning itself the very fitting nickname Helltown.
Hereford Station in New London is said to be haunted by a woman named Augusta Bowman. In the mid-1890s, Hereford Station was a busy hub on the B&O Railroad. It's now abandoned, but it's still home to some creepy spectral figures, or really one. The station, alongside a hotel and restaurant, sat in a valley just south of New London on Route 60. Augusta Bowman, a single mother of 2 who worked in the local restaurant, became romantically entangled. She had an entanglement with the married restaurant owner, but when he discovered that she planned to leave him for another man, he got jealous. Hypocritical much? He killed Bowman and disposed of her body in a nearby creek. Well, guess who haunts the area now? Railroad workers have been known to report seeing a distressed young woman wandering near the edge of the woods along the tracks, who of course vanishes into thin air. Oh, and here's a really creepy thing though that's been said to happen. Locals will see a white-faced woman just peering into their windows at night. And I imagine they go outside and she's not there anymore.
And finally, we have the Lima Tuberculosis Hospital, a sanitarium whose doors originally opened in 1911 during the rise of the tuberculosis epidemic. At first, the hospital was equipped with only 24 beds, but in 1927, due to a rise in the number of infected individuals, the hospital was remodeled to hold 158 beds. The sanitarium was in operation for 62 years, during which time an estimated 3,000 patients died from their illnesses under the hospital's care, which is wild considering that it didn't house a lot of people. Now, the grounds are said to be extremely haunted, of course, by deceased patients. People have claimed to have had ghosts following them through the halls of the abandoned building, and on the 3rd floor, explorers have reported hearing a very low, steady pounding noise, as well as having seen shadowy figures quickly moving around the halls and in and out of rooms. Today, the area is pretty heavily guarded by police, as it is not only abandoned but also banned for the safety of the public. So if you are hoping to go ghost hunting in Ohio, you might have to leave this one off your list, unfortunately, despite the fact that it would probably be a pretty cool place to visit. But I'm not condoning that. That's liability is not mine. No, don't go.
Number 5. St. Michael's Hospital. St. Michael's Hospital was established by the Sisters of St. Joseph in 1892, and one nun is still reportedly making her rounds to this day. The hospital is famous for tales of Sister Vincenza or Sister Vinnie. Sister Vincenza worked at the hospital for 28 years as the nursing supervisor of obstetrics and died in 1958. Since 1965, visitors and staff have described encounters with Sister Vincenza senza, which often include her rearranging medication, giving blankets to new mothers, and turning lights on and off. However, it turns out that Sister Vinny isn't alone in haunting this medical center. According to the hospital's records, there have been a ton of different ghostly experiences, many of which do not match the description of Sister Vinny. There's also said to be a spirit in the back filing room of the hospital's medical records office. Possessed elevators, rearranged medication, and flashing lights are other things that go on here. Number 4. Queen's Park. The legislative building at Queen's Park has been operating since 1860, and the grounds on which it sits have been used since at least 1830. As one of the oldest urban parks in Canada, it's no surprise that the building is haunted. Now, before the construction of the legislative complex, the University Hospital for the Insane was built on this property, dating back to 1842. Now today, there are multiple ghosts. The White Lady wanders the halls, appearing with a long white flowing robe and long hair. Now the maiden wears a checkered dress with an apron which she holds over her face to conceal her features, and the most gruesome is the hanging woman who dangles from a hook in the long tunnel in the basement. Also, an apparition of a soldier in full regimental dress was spotted appearing angry as he descended the grand staircase of the main hall. Many visitors have reported sightings of a ghostly female figure, sometimes alone and sometimes in small groups of 4. And one of them is known to be malevolent, and overall it's just a spooky place. Number 3. The Dawn Jail. The original building was completed in 1864 and was reopened in 2013 to serve as the administrative wing of the Bridgepoint Active Healthcare, a rehabilitation hospital located adjacent to the jail. Now the jail originally had a capacity of 184 inmates and was separated into an east wing for the men and a west wing for the women. The jail is known for its overcrowding, inhumane living conditions, and public hangings. Abandoned Spaces reports that 60 people were hanged at the jail, and several were buried in unmarked graves on its grounds. The ghosts of the executed prisoners are said to roam the site to this day, including that of a blonde woman who hanged herself in the woman's block. Number 2. The Elgin and Winter Garden Theatre Center. Built in 1913, originally called Lowe's Young Street Theatre, the historic venue is not only home to 2 theaters, but also a few spirits. Now, the Elgin and Winter Garden Theatre Center, its most famous ghost is the Lavender Lady. While no one knows who she is, there's speculation that she could be a rival actress of a jealous castmate, or perhaps a jilted wife whose husband fell in love with a showgirl. When she makes her appearance, it is in the grand staircase and elevator areas. Those who have felt her presence notice a drop in temperature and the scent of lavender. She's also been known to call one of the 1930 manually operated cage elevators when she doesn't feel like taking the stairs. However, when the elevator door opens, the operator finds no one there except for a cool breeze and the fragrance of lavender flowers. Now, another ghost here is Sam. In 1989, after the building restoration was complete, 3 volunteers and staff heard a trombone or trumpet playing. Another odd occurrence was when the seats in the theater were flipping down and then back up. The volunteers used a Ouija board to conduct a seance at midnight on the stage of the theater, and the group communicated with a musician named Sam, and he said he was a trombone player in a 1918 vaudeville production at the Winter Garden. And coming in at number 1 is Casa Loma. Casa Loma is a Gothic revival castle-style mansion and garden that is now a historic house museum and landmark. It was constructed from 1911 to 1914 as a residence for financier Sir Henry Pellet. Now this place is absolutely beautiful, but there are some ghost stories surrounding this magnificent castle. The White Lady is someone who is believed to be a maid who worked here in the early 1900s, around the time when 60,000 people in Toronto died of influenza. She's been seen in a lot of places by guests or by cleaning or cafeteria staff as they've been cleaning up at the end of the day. Some have also reported sightings of Sir Henry Pellet and his wife Lady Mary Pellet. The tunnel leading to the castle's stables is another place where the most notorious ghost is believed to roam. Many have reported feeling as though they had been grabbed or had their hair pulled in the tunnel. People have also reported hearing the spirit in the tunnel sighing gruffly, as he's even been captured in recordings, speaking and interacting with visitors. In one recording, he is heard mimicking a medium who said, "Oh, he's a horrible person," while trying to make contact. Now, I've been here before and that tunnel is scary, so it doesn't surprise me that some ghosts lurk there. People also hear disembodied voices and feel touched by someone who's not there at all.
Moving on to number 6, Keiseiku Execution Grounds. Located in western Beijing, during imperial times, the Keiseiku Execution Grounds, as the eerie name would suggest, were a location where public executions were carried out as a form of capital punishment. Those convicted of treason or serious crimes against their family were brought here to be tormented and executed by a variety of cruelties, including beheading, strangulation, or something called lingqi, which is known as death by 1,000 cuts. On the day of the deed, which was always scheduled promptly at 11:30, it was customary for the convicted to be carted into a wine shop for one final drink of rice wine before facing their slow and painful death. So, as you can imagine, there are a lot of reports of spooky and haunted phenomena. Nowadays, while it no longer serves its original purpose, visitors passing by have reported encountering the spirits of the dead when strolling around these haunted streets. And some even say that if you visit right at 11:30 a.m., you can still hear the screams of all of those who lost their lives. Moving on to number 5, Toonwon Road. Built in 1977, Toonwon Road is a very busy highway that is said to be one of the most haunted and dangerous stretches of road in the entire world. According to the South China Morning Post, there were 250 traffic accidents on the highway between 2010 and 2012, and many suspect that with each death, even more accidents are bound to occur. Citizens claim that the ghosts who died on this highway continue to haunt it, and some even think there are some malicious, vengeful spirits looking for revenge on their lives taken too soon. The reason being is that some claim that while driving on the road, they have suddenly seen a ghost appear in front of their car, forcing them to swerve in a panic and almost crash, while others claim that spirits have actually seized control of their vehicle and driven them off a bridge. So I would definitely avoid this one if you can. Moving on to number 4, Se Ying Pun Community Complex. Located on High Street, Hong Kong, the Se Ying Pun Community Complex was built in 1892 with the mission of providing housing for European nurses. But during World War II, under Japanese imperial rule, legends say the Japanese army often used the complex as a site for executions. Then following the war, the complex was converted into an asylum that was then left abandoned after several fires. And many think that between the deaths in World War II and the maltreatment of patients in the institution, the complex remains haunted by all different kinds of spirits. People claim to have seen headless poltergeists running down the corridors in the middle of the night, while the second floor is said to be haunted by a devilish-looking creature in traditional Chinese dress that spontaneously bursts into flames. Others have reported hearing the footsteps and screams of a girl or woman who is attacked by a Japanese soldier, and overall it's just a super creepy and haunted location. Moving on to number 3. Keonai number 81. According to legend, sometime in the middle of the 20th century, the building became the home of a powerful nationalist party official, but when the communists defeated the nationalists at the end of China's Civil War in 1949, it said the terrified official fled his home and disappeared off to Taiwan, leaving his wife behind. As the legend goes, in her grief after being left behind, his wife took her own life in the house, and many believe she continues to haunt the abandoned property to this day. Some people that have visited say they can hear her screams echo throughout the halls. Others say they've seen feet dangle from the rafters, but when they get close enough to help, it's as if they vanished into thin air. But that's not all. A number of disappearances have also been linked to this haunted house. It's said that the house was built for an English priest to be used as a church, but that he disappeared before construction was completed. When investigators searched the house, they found a secret crypt that opened onto a tunnel. And in 2001, legends say a group of construction workers renovating the basement adjacent to the building thought it would be fun to break through the thin wall separating the properties, and they were supposedly
never seen again. Moving on to number 2, Chu Mansion. Near the beginning of the 20th century, the Chu brothers came to Shanghai as migrant workers and dreamed of becoming rich. Shortly after they arrived, they happened upon a warehouse that was filled with paint, which was becoming increasingly expensive, and that is when the pair's dream ended up coming true. They made their fortune selling the paint after World War I, and with the money, they built identical mansions next to one another in the heart of the city. The Chu brothers became notorious for their lavish and luxurious lifestyle, collecting exotic animals like tigers, crocodiles, and peacocks. But then suddenly, at the height of their fame and notoriety, the brothers mysteriously vanished and were never seen again. Following their disappearance, the mansion fell into disrepair, and it said neighbors even broke in to loot their riches and kill their exotic animals. Since then, people have claimed that the ghosts of the slain animals haunt the Chu mansions, and people have reported seeing and hearing strange noises and howls echo throughout the halls. One woman claimed to have seen a dragon crawling on a crane. In another incident, a mason attacked his manager after claiming lizards had ordered him to do so. But even scarier, night guards working for the Four Seasons Hotel across the street have sometimes gone to the hospital to be treated for unexplained animal bites. And last up in our number 1 spot, the Great Wall. Now, the Great Wall of China is easily the most well-known monument in the entire country, as it's also one of the 7 wonders of the world. But wouldn't you know, it's also rumored to be extremely haunted. And honestly, when you think about it, it's not that far-fetched. It's said that 1 to 2 million workers died during the centuries of construction, and many claim that their ghosts continue to haunt the wall to this day. Visitors have reported seeing ghosts along the wall or hearing the sounds of marching footsteps while no one else is around. Others have experienced more intense sensations, like sudden feelings of uneasiness, attacks of nausea, pain, or headaches, while the scariest encounters reported being slapped, punched, or grabbed by unseen beings. Now, according to local legend, the Wild Wall located north of Beijing is said to be the most haunted section, and apparently several hikers have actually died in the area under mysterious or inexplicable circumstances. But before you decide to never visit the wall, local legend claims that while you can expect to be haunted or even tormented by ghosts of the dead workers, you can also scare them away by stepping over a line of firecrackers.